introductory activity or getting started activity. So let's do this first because I see a few new faces. Let's go around the room and just introduce yourself. Oh, we need some starting. Oh, very good. Good job, team. And introduce yourself. Let us know where you're at and what your role is in your district in regard to curriculum or system soup or whatever that might be. So I'll start. I'm Holly Francis. I'm the assistant soup in Augusta.
Monty Couchman. I'm Director of Student Learning at SoCal.
Cindy Couchman. I'm the Assistant Superintendent at Bueller. Audrey Austin. I am the curriculum person for K through 6 as well as ELA for 5th and 6th.
Mary Ellen Kirkbride, I'm a teacher at Purdue Prairie. I'm taking some graduate courses in curriculum and instruction, so that puts me in the position to come to these meetings and report back to my district.
Beth Parker, Coordinator of Secondary Education for Mays.
Mary Dewey, Susan Mays.
Oh, sorry. Mandy Bruce, Assistant Superintendent at Renwick. Jana Weedle, Director of College and Career Readiness at Paulsville.
Angie McConnell, I'm the elementary person in McPherson and my secondary person.
Okay. Welcome.
Jamie Fellers. Oh, sorry. No, that's right. Jamie Fellers, Assistant Director of Professional Learning here at SF.
And we have a couple of gals with us from the Cosmosphere, and when it's their turn, I will let them introduce themselves as well. So welcome, everybody. We're going to kind of push through the beginning of the agenda because I want to make sure we stay on schedule for the Cosmosphere. Then we can get off track all we want to after they're done, just like we always do. So starting up at the top, just a few housekeeping items, and I kind of created this row just because there's always a few things that don't really fit in the agenda, but I don't want to forget to discuss. Just a reminder that the 2 rescheduled dates are up there at the top that we changed because we had conflicts with KSDE. The second thing there is our Google Drive folder that contains all of our documents. If you don't have access to that and you can't get access to it, just let me know today and I'll share that out again, and that way you have it and can get into it whenever you need to. And then in talking with Tamara, we usually meet a week or so before we meet. And we last time we talked a little bit about our PM session. What we thought we would do for November is today talk a little bit about, we looked at the survey data, and something that came up or rose to the top as kind of being important was possibly having some breakout sessions or groups. So we're meeting the individual needs of different people because although we all have a lot in common, we have individual needs as well that I might not need information on one thing and Karen might. So what we thought we would try to do in the afternoons, and maybe not every month, but would be to kind of have some breakout support sessions, informal yet somewhat formal, where we're providing you with some information about topics of interest, whether it be KESA, poverty, attendance, anything that is of interest to the group. And then if we plan and get some ideas right now, then Tamara and I will have some time over the course of the next few weeks to see if we can make sure that we have a person that's in the spot that's facilitating that group. Okay, so let's talk about that real quick. One thing that she did mention, and we can have more than one breakout session. We can have 2 or 3 or just 2, kind of just depends. But today we were going to have Rebecca Lewis come and talk about poverty this afternoon, but her schedule's been pretty hectic, so we took it off. So I am going to add that as a breakout session because I know Tamara had talked about putting her back on the list possibly next month when her schedule lightens up just a little bit. So from the group, are there any topics that you feel like you need some support on, whether it be for 30 minutes or an hour or 2 next month?
Support is in our job, and not support is in like organizing our lives at home and things like that.
We could probably do that too. Yeah. We can call it juggling life. Juggling life.
I would like to help with social
I hear.
I know self-care, how to get rid of stress.
Hey, we can have a yoga session in the afternoon.
Nails, facial
And I'm
massage.
kind of serious.
I'm going hardcore here. I know.
We're gonna do it.
I read social emotional like
Growth.
the curriculum or what people are doing to measure it and teach it. And
Okay. All right, anything else?
We are really looking at that tiered system of support.
So the MTSS
Yeah.
in all three
Piece.
areas?
Yes, for high school, for all
So
three
maybe
areas.
seeing if we could have Taz and WebEx in or something and can maybe walk us through, or if there's somebody here that has that
And if they're
information.
different enough, maybe do elementary one.
Yeah.
And then middle school,
And
and
high
then high
school.
school, because I feel like
They're very different.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. At least get us started maybe with an overview and provide us with some information, but we'll see what we can get from them and maybe actually that might be just one that we have, and then we have MTSS and elementary and secondary, so then we have 2 breakout sessions and those representatives could go through that with us if they're available. Okay. Let me put elementary and secondary. And just so you know, and I don't know if you got the email, I can dig it up, but I got an email a couple weeks ago that Tasman's going out and doing workshops on MTSS for reading, behavior, and math. I saw that somewhere, I haven't signed up, but I have that link somewhere, so just FYI.
It's in the Division of Learning Services newsletter.
Is that, yeah, I think that might be where it was. I remember pulling it up and seeing that, so, okay. And again, actually, we can just list these on here, and if we don't get to them next month, you know, it's something we can push to the next, so we can just kind of have an ongoing list, and then take them off. once
Is
we
anybody
get
else
them.
experiencing rapid growth in ESOL?
Yes.
We have about 30, so that's not very many, but.
I do have fewer than we do, which is crazy.
I'd like to have some.
You have fewer than we do, I thought.
Some help, like interpreting and reading the ASQ results, which Penny would probably be able to help us with.
Yeah, she could lead the breakout group.
I mean, I've had some, but like the reports, I don't think they're very friendly to help.
There's a new, are you going
There
to
was-
training?
I am not.
Great
My-
job at KSDE presenting that information, so she.
Yeah, there was,
Yeah.
who
Penny-
did that?
Penny
Penny?
did that.
Yes.
That's why.
So I would have her do the breakout session on that, and then if you're going to that training, like there's 2 people
I'm
going,
going to that one.
but if you're not, then that would be good for you to be aware of. But you should have 2 people from your district, or at least one that's gonna come back and do your training.
Yeah, we were in part of the pilot, so
Yeah.
our pilot people went, but I didn't go, so now I'm out of the loop a little bit, right? You know what I'm saying, is the pilot people went, so they're like, oh, we don't need to go, we've already done it. Now I'm like, but I need help. ASQ.
And on that note, we have, as of yesterday, we have 6 spots open. And KSD's been very firm about, like, they cut it off. We are the last training, so if you don't have your 2 people signed up and you want to attend at NSTAC, get that done. They did inform me yesterday, because we have filled up so quickly, that they will take a waiting list, and she'll get back with me, but she goes, I'm not gonna make those decisions until you're full.
When is that?
November
15.
Okay, thank you.
And I have no idea what it is, so I don't know if I need to report back.
Yes, every district needs to send their, KSDE is requesting 2, not 1, because when you only send 1, then somebody leaves, you're stuck.
What is the ASQ3 first?
So
Sorry.
2, that's the kindergarten readiness tool. Screener.
Okay, I
And
got
snapshot. So typically, most people, I think, and you guys can correct me, are sending one of their lead teachers at that level or
We
2.
need 2 teachers. I'll make sure.
Because
Because
they
they
have to train.
They have to come back and train before they start implementing it in the fall next year.
So the
Yeah.
training though, is that gonna be, like, I know how to load the people and I know how to enter the data, because I did all that. I'm just talking about the reports. Are they gonna share like how to read the reports? Because last time the training I went to, it was about the implementation and how to, the program itself.
Well, how about this? How about, because the last training's in November, so how about we wait and see, and then if they don't offer the information on the
Okay.
reports, then we can definitely
Okay.
have a follow-up
Okay.
session in the afternoon with Penny to address any questions that we have that we can give answers to.
And I'm gonna be honest, because I don't know. I know that KSDE is coming with them, but it's been I think it's called the Brooks Group. It's been the provider of the tool that's doing the training right now. So like, what actually happens in that day where ours is the last one, I'm not 100% sure.
And you said you had 6 positions as of right this second?
6 spots left, yes. That went to the, went to kind of help with the pilot stuff, but I don't know what they're doing. Somebody been to that training already?
No, I think the only 2 they've had are far away from, I mean, you know, are
Okay.
like Eudora. and-
I'm going to Salina, I think.
Yeah, there's
That
one
must
in
be the one
Salina,
on
too.
too. When is the one in Salina?
Next week.
Let me look real quick.
Okay, let me know. That actually be closer for me.
Karen, on ESOL, were you just thinking just general support on curriculum, how to, the program, just your program and how to?
Really what we need is, we need help with moving the gen ed staff.
Oh,
Like our ESOL facilitators are awesome and the programming stuff is down, but struggling with the gen ed staff, seeing themselves as primary interventionists for those kids and
Okay.
I guess mainly knowing that they have tools in their toolboxes that will work and giving them the confidence that they, you know, there are many strategies they can be using in gen ed, so
Okay.
it might not be for this group, it's just something we need to work on.
I just want to make sure I can contact the gal at the state that's in charge of that, and then if she's able to zoom in with us or whatever, I want to make sure she kind of has an idea of what.
It sounds like maybe I'm the only one needing that, so.
Oh, I think it's, I would benefit from that.
Like you'll
Title
see,
III, yeah.
some of our people been coming.
If you can join them, that might be helpful, as opposed to this group, but maybe that would be a good group.
Oh,
to
you're
go
right.
with.
Yeah.
So with them, I go
I always put them on my calendar.
I go to that one
They help me.
a couple times a year.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And they might be able to provide some strategies.
I thought it might be useful when I saw you guys.
Okay, anything else that you're, and we can add to this, and you know, anytime, and you can go in and nobody ever goes in here. You always get in there and type stuff in there because this is your agenda too. So if something pops into your mind, the agenda's there. Remember, I just copy this each month and then change the date. So if you go in today after the meeting and you type something in about 3 weeks, I'll go in, I copy this, change the date. So the information that you put in there will still be there. I don't redo this thing every time, which fortunately you have to do with Google. So anything else?
Still doing it. We haven't done it yet.
Oh, quick. She was gonna be crushed that she might miss the photo circle. I know.
No, she was excited about it.
Okay, now we're gonna do the photo circle. Okay, so this is new, and this is just something, me trying to get out of a rut, I think, and doing something maybe a little bit fun, because I am not fun at all. This is something, I can't remember I think it was when I was at AVID, District Director Training. Every time we went to a training, we used this Photo Circle app. And we used it, for example, these were like 3 or 4 day trainings, and we would complete activities kind of like we do here. We'd have chart paper up, and we would go around, and it's a great way to keep the history of what you're doing at your meetings, and then we can use it like we're using it here too to share things that we're doing in our district. But instead of, you know how we go around and we take pictures of all the charts that are up on the wall, and then I used to embed them into the agenda. Well, now everything that we do, if we're doing an activity that we want to keep the chart, we want to see what's on it, you just snap a picture and then we upload it into Photo Circle, and you have all of these pictures that will be contained in this Photo Circle that was created just for our group. You could do this with your administrators, like I do this with my administrative team. Same kind of thing, we have a getting started activity, and I'll have them bring a picture or two to share. It's very similar to what we're doing here, because we're trying to tie it back to things that are going on with KISO or redesign or, you know, whatever. And it's just a way to engage a little bit differently and share things that are going on with it. Instead of it just being all verbal, you can kind of see a picture of kids or teachers doing different things throughout the building. So if you haven't downloaded the app, if you go into your phone, and everybody, if you've done it, you might help your neighbor and I can walk around. The app looks like this right here. And you just go in, you download the app, and then there is a link here, but the best way to do it, since we're live here today, is there is a PIN number. And if you were to create one of these for an administrative group or a PLC group back at your district, You can create your own photo circle as well, call it something, and I can go through that with you in a minute. But if you enter the PIN number when you go to join, you're going to open the photo circle app. I believe on the left-hand side it will say join, and then you're going to type in this PIN. And then once you do that, and I don't know if there's a submit button, but then it will open up and give you access to this curriculum leaders photo circle. So I'm going to give everybody just a few minutes to do that if you haven't. Help your neighbor if they need assistance, because we will be using this.
Yeah. We're neighbor.
Got it. I know you had it.
I'm good.
I saw your pictures.
I don't
put the circle up there. And we put the circle over there.
I had a really great one.
You threw it away. Said I was free at 6:08 and I was
Thought about it.
So now, when you saw our, you want to do that now.
She's cut on my part.
No, that would have been plenty hit on my part. This morning was the morning. The graduation packet was due today.
Okay, so
The what?
The graduation packet was due today, you know, with the cat that they
Got it.
the other one.
You got it last night at 11:05.
No, he almost did.
No, she just got a text saying she needs money and it's due at noon.
That's nice, right? But I had to nail my two boys down, nailing the boys down,
Getting it?
or anything, it's like a.
Yeah,
I
it
had to
just-
put a circle somewhere on my. I just don't. I just, this week, we did it, did we have a group of you there that day?
Yes, that's what I was telling them.
Yeah, that was
It's
the
like
day.
we use it at ADL training every time, like we did ADL 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we had a photo circle for each one, because we took so many pictures
Of the stuff you see.
of stuff, and
That's
then
pretty
people,
cool.
would-
And then you have access to it all the time.
and people would put pictures of themselves on there, so everybody could kind of get familiar with who was who, and
This is a good selfie.
so you can see pictures
Yeah.
of people in the group. But there's usually a little, up at the top, once you're in there, if you have a little picture of yourself, it'll scroll across the top. But I think like somebody would say, put a picture of something you with your family or something that you enjoy doing, and you can use it for whatever purpose you want.
So I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. I texted Pam and asked her to call if Salina had any more openings, and they don't. So I'm just giving you that information. They said Hayes still has a few, but my guess is that's not really closer for anyone. The ASQ3, no, I probably said all those in the wrong order, but
that was
was that right? Oh, yay. The Snapshot tool training that KSD is coming to all the service centers to do.
When is yours?
November 15th, and then we have 6 spots left.
How many slots?
6.
Right, I just had somebody tell me today to do it, so I'm gonna go register today.
Okay,
Hey, Holly.
everybody, yes.
Sorry, I just thought of one more thing maybe for our list of breakouts. Anybody else have interest in Kansas Star?
Oh, Cran.
Oh, we're doing it.
Yeah,
Can you address that?
Yeah, we're hosting next Wednesday a training at Stone Valley. Cindy's bringing some staff, and then there's a couple folks from somewhere in Southwest.
Do you have
Kansas
room for
County
people?
Probably do.
And it would reduce her cost, so I would always do that.
We had training, but the interface completely changed after.
Jen Stelter, Southwest.
she's doing ours too. She's coming out to do our administrators in December. I think it's the 15th. I'm not sure of the date. And what she's going to do, because we're trying to figure out which one to use. So she's doing a half a day on Kansas Star and half a day on how you might use Google to do it. So if you just want to come, Jen,
Stelter.
she's coming, and she was the one that did a good job of explaining.
Jen Stelter.
So
How would I find her?
Southwest Plains.
That's where she
Mhm.
is.
But she's the one, if you want somebody to come out and really take you through it thoroughly and do a really good job.
We had that. Pat
Was it
came
from her,
out,
though?
and no, Pat did a good job, but then they changed it.
Oh.
So everything we learned,
We
like the
need some
principals are getting
updates.
their notes out, and the interface completely changed.
Probably add-
Process we ended up
But I think I'm
shut it out.
Yes. I'm gonna put Kansas Star on here. because I know we had talked about that before and having somebody come out, and Tamara had mentioned maybe getting Jen to come here and do that for an afternoon session for us. So we'll leave that on. And what's her last name, Jen?
Stelter, S-T-E-L-T.
Okay. All right, good list. That should keep us busy for a while.
Oh, and maybe people should know that how to access that report.
Yes, I pulled, they're easy.
Yeah, they're super easy.
I have that on today's agenda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, no, I don't know if I do or not. I have that on my admin agenda because I went to that training the other day. I'm startled. Okay. All right, so everybody got their photo circle. If you had an opportunity now, if you haven't uploaded pictures, what you do is you're in there and you'll see a little red circle with a camera. So if you click on that, then you can go in and you'll probably want to pick a picture from your gallery. Find the picture. Once you pick a picture, it'll have a red check mark or a white check mark with a red circle. And then in the top right-hand corner, there's a little check mark. It'll say like one selected, and over to the right, along the black bar, there's a check mark. And you just click that check mark, and it will upload the picture. Then once the picture is uploaded, and you don't have to do this, but if you open your picture once it's uploaded and you see it there, down in the bottom right-hand corner, or actually if it's your picture, down along the bottom there will be a black bar, and you can type in a comment. So that might be a place to describe what is this picture about. You might want to put this increasing rigor, or focusing on relationships, or description of, like I think on there that we got a leadership grant. We were a leadership grant recipient, and I put that on there. So that way, if you want to refer back to it later, you kind of have an idea of what the pictures are. Then the other thing is in the right-hand corner, and it's kind of hard to see depending on what the color of the picture is. If it's really light, there's a little comment box on the right, and if you click on that, then you can add a comment to the picture and go, hey, that's awesome, or hey, could I get some more information about that? The problem with that is, going back and you may not know that somebody's commented on it, but there is definitely a place where you can go in and comment on that, or maybe put some, your 2 cents in, or add some information that might be helpful about that topic. So I'm going to give everybody just a couple minutes to do that, if you haven't already. I see some new ones popping up. Good job, everybody. When it kicks on, it blows out like, it's like freezing.
See?
What?
I'm with Holly.
I didn't go back and do it.
It's freezing.
This room is freezing.
I know,
When it's on, it's blowing the freezer.
It's like almost
It's
one.
yeah.
Okay. Everybody good? I still see people typing, so we'll give you another.
How can you see us typing? Is it because you're on your computer, not your phone?
She sees us typing.
She should do it.
Literally
Look
see
at
that
you.
type printed.
Oh, I thought you could tell on your screen that.
Oh, no, it's looking at all you with your heads buried in your phone.
Oh, I think I'm just looking for other.
Okay. I'm like, there's something I don't know, I'm not aware of that I should be.
I thought you could see little bubbles or something.
Oh, no. Only thing I can see is, and you can see it too, is when people are putting new pictures in. So I would assume maybe every few hours the new goes away after it's been loaded on there for a few hours. I don't know what the time frame is.
I make sure of that because I put mine on this morning.
It's gone. It's no longer new.
Maybe it's once you look at what's the new.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think, yeah, when it goes in, because as soon as I open it, it goes away.
Okay, so let's do this. And because I'm maybe not real tech savvy, I thought maybe there would be a way I could pull it up on my phone and put it up there, but we all have access to our phones, so what you can do is guide people to the picture, And then you'll click on the picture that they're sharing, and they're gonna talk a little bit about what the picture is, and then how is it relevant to the Kansas Can outcomes, maybe if it's just one of them, or maybe the 4 Rs, or if it's just a quality professional learning activity that you have conducted recently that supports the Kansas Learning Forward Professional Learning Standards. And really, just a picture if it's awesome PD that you have going on that you want to share, that's fine. I just had to throw in the Learning Forward Standards because we're supposed to be familiar with them, so they're there. So let's start with Teresa, and let's do this in the essence of time. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start this. We're gonna stop at 9:30 because we're not gonna be done. We know how we are. And then we'll let the Cosmosphere go, and then we'll finish up. So share 1 or 2 pictures.
I have not uploaded anything, so next.
Okay, so
Also,
Kelly,
I'm waiting.
that's okay.
Mine is my
Can you
first
give me
one.
can you give the picture number?
Is there a number?
11.
11.
to go.
Where's the number at?
Yeah.
If you
down,
it's like,
Oh, 27 of, okay, I see it. Okay, yes. What number is it?
11.
11. Look at that. You're so good, Susie.
Last Friday, we had our first full staff in-service of the year, minus the stuff at the beginning of the year, and we worked on our KESA needs assessment. We had done that a couple years back and then had some kind of sweeping administrative changes and realized that we maybe needed to reevaluate that before we move forward. So it was very interesting, interesting information, interesting to get all of the staff looking at those rubrics and identifying issues and possible solutions. So, and then the next 2, 12 and 13 are both from me. This is at our grade school. We do something called family groups. Everybody just has a different name for it, where each staff member has kids from grades K through 6, kindergarten, first grader, second grader, and so on, multi-age kids that they get together. We work on some character development stuff for 30 minutes a week. And this week, our counselor put together a community service day that we did with our family groups. So the first one is the pictures of the kids who were working inside. They did things like sweep and dust and pull out the bleachers and clean under them, cleaned everyone's iPad screens. And then the second one, we also took them outside. Most of these pictures are from our nature center. We have a big nature center in between the weeds of our building that gets full of leaves and dead plants and all that. So they maintained the nature center, poured a bunch of mulch, and it was neat. And I actually had one of our secretaries has kids in 6th and 4th grade, and she said when they got home that day, her kids wanted to help clean the house.
Oh.
Can we get out some rags and scrub down the cabinets and things like that, just because they had so much fun doing it at school. So we're hoping those weren't the only 2 that did that.
Carry
or
over.
carried over. So anyway, very fun activities. Oh, I guess I had 3 of them. 12, 13, and 14 are all our kids doing community service. So that's all I've got.
I got number 7, 8, and 9. And this was just the most recent from yesterday after school. So we do, does anybody else do destination imagination? Destination amount of 7, 8, 9. The kids with the pumpkins.
Oh, yeah, I recognize him.
You know, the guy with the really long hair there and the green dot on his head, pretty cute, isn't he? So, does anybody else do destination imagination? So that it's an international, it's actually more international to world program, and it's all problem solving for kids and teamwork and whatnot. So it's built typically around some sort of a science. It fits really well with the Cosmosphere stuff I talk about. But you have teams of no more than 7. And it starts with pre-K. I mean, it starts with little kids. Like you can have little kids do it, but we start with our 3rd graders, and they work all year long as a team, and it's after-school activities. So we have a lot of parents that are coaches. I'm a coach because this is my kids' team, so I help coach with another parent. We've got some classified staff that do that, and we pay if a classified staff person wants to be a coach. We'll pay them $15, $20 an hour to do that. And those teams get together, and we've got instant challenges. So last night's challenge was, you have 2 pumpkins. Here's the carving kits. Here it is. You need to create a skit that has a superhero and a villain. The villain's trying to do something to the school that's bad. The superhero is going to save the school. Go. And they had 30 minutes to carve the pumpkins up, come up with a skit, and then perform it for us. And then they're judged on creativity, teamwork, all those sorts of things. But it very much fits everything we're trying to do with Kansas Can. And as we're doing redesign, we're looking at how do you incorporate activities within the school day. as opposed to always being after school and parents wanting to go take kids places, and so when we're talking poverty and all those things. So this would be something we look to incorporate more throughout the school day to get more community members to come in and take over these sorts of activities. So
Is there a cost to that?
you pay, there's for each team, I just did this. There's a Kansas affiliate cost and then to get all the books. So it's like $150 a team. So not bad at all. And then there's a competition in April. And then this year is in Lawrence. We've hosted it in McPherson before, but that's the state competition. And teams that get first place in that competition are then able to go to the national competition, which is always in Tennessee. And it's a really fast turnaround, so the fundraising for that's hard. So we're starting fundraising now. We're going to duct tape the principal to the wall.
Okay, we are gonna stop there, and I'm going to have the Cosmosphere, who's with us today, share some information about some awesome curriculum program. It looks like a little different than even what you had a couple years ago when you came out. So I'll let them come on up, introduce themselves, and we will get started. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you. Now, where's the best place to stand so I'm not walking? Oh, yeah. Stay right here. I'm gonna grab some. You wanna grab them? Right. Well, thank you for being here and thank you for having us. My name is Helene Kane, and I am the School Programs Manager at the Cosmosphere. And my colleague is Laura Page, and she is Manager of International Programs. What is yours?
International Space Science Educator.
Okay. So she's working on some other stuff too. And I'm fairly new to Kansas. My husband took a job here a few years ago. And when I realized we were going to be moving to Hutchinson, Kansas, I got online and read about it, and I went, oh my God, what is this Cosmosphere place? This looks really awesome. And I was particularly interested because my father worked for NASA during all the really exciting years. I'm a NASA child, although I didn't really inherit the math and science genes. They skipped a generation, but I'm an educator. I've worked with ages 6 to 21. I've been involved in public and private education. I've been on boards. And probably more importantly, I've raised 3 sons that had widely different learning styles. So I'm just thrilled to be able to work at a place like the Cosmosphere and combine my NASA heritage with my love of education. I feel that the Cosmosphere is a really unique and important treasure for Kansas, and especially central Kansas. And it's important to pay attention to the space race, how it expanded our interest in science and help things beyond space exploration, even in our daily lives. Every time I look at my cell phone, I'm like, oh my God, this has more computing power than that entire citywide block building that my dad used to work with. And look at all the things you guys were just doing with your cell phones and the satellites and everything that help them work. Is there anybody in here who hasn't heard of the Cosmosphere? Do you want me to talk about who we are? We're right here in Hutch. And we are a museum. We are a science education center. We really take seriously our role as a resource for our educators in the state. There's always so much going on there. We have many facets, and I hope that today I'll be able to tell you about something you weren't aware of. And I do, as you guys introduced yourselves, I was happy to know that I think just about everybody has sent a group to the Cosmosphere in the last year or two. So that's great. We are space. We feel strongly that you really never know when inspiration is going to hit a student. It might be pulling up in the parking lot and seeing the huge rockets and going, wow. And we want to add that wow factor to some really solid educational things that we are doing. So we focus on the science of going to space. We also are a history museum. We had somebody recently come in who said to us, I have been to museums all around the world. I didn't know what I was going to find walking in here in the middle of Kansas, but you guys tell the most coherent story of the history of space that I have ever seen a museum tell a story. I don't know if you guys are aware, within our artifacts, we have more Russian artifacts than anybody else outside of Russia. And we're just pretty awesome that way. We have a lot to offer when you talk about STEAM versus STEM. We're also a history museum, and recently we've been attracting music teachers who have come in and done some forgetting the term, but many subjects combined, STEAM things. We had a teacher from Manhattan that produced a whole score based on the Challenger disaster last year, and he brought in his language arts teachers, he brought in his phys ed teachers. They were doing the movement, they were doing sounds, they were doing how you would do news commentary, what was the history of it. They had they had the vocalist, they had the instrumentalist. It was really awesome. And then we were able, because we are the Cosmosphere and we know the astronauts and we know their families and they come through often, we were able to hook this group up with June Scobie, who was the widow of the commander of the Challenger. So that's just an example of things we can do. We work individually with every school. We customize. We really are there to meet your needs and support you. And we really feel that all students in Kansas should know about the Cosmosphere. And we think that there's more of a wow factor for them when they're able to come in through one of our education programs as opposed to just coming in and wandering through. So we encourage you to consider them. And we'd like to show you, just to refresh your memory if you've not been there for a while, a video that an Eagle Scout made recently for an Eagle Scout project. And it shows some of the things that go on there. Isn't that an awesome little Eagle Scout project? He had a lot of fun doing that too. So I hope you saw something that inspired you there. Some of the clips were from education programs. Some were from our camp programs, which are really sought after. And I want to emphasize, there's so many different things we can do with your school groups during the year, including we just had a group come through and they did a camp during the year. So they stayed overnight in Hutch. And we've had other groups that have just come 3 days in a row, and we've done pretty much what we do during camps during the summer. Because you mentioned Destination Imagination, I have a background in DI. I coached 7 teams for my kids that were, it was Odyssey of the Mind before it was Destination Imagination, and I like to bring some of the DI concepts into the programs that we are evolving at the Cosmosphere. I'm on the state board here now, so if you have questions about that, you can ask me, but we do a lot of DI related things with especially our curriculum programs. We try to teach the kids to think outside the box, think on their feet, learn how to work in teams, understand that if you have a good idea, it's not going to go anywhere unless you can sell it. So there are many career paths involved that help work on anything science or NASA related. I mean, you could be a materials engineer, but then you also need the person that's good at writing up a sales pitch to whoever's making decisions. You need communicators, you need people good with their hands. We a lot of opportunities through our education programs to talk about different career paths and turn somebody on. I'm not going to go through everything today, but in this booklet, it talks about our typical school group packages. We have what we consider field trips, which are not just ordinary field trips, but they're quick. And if you only have a certain amount of time, you can come in and whet your appetite. And later on, if you want to look through this handout that you got, that's got the little circle there, it just gives you some quick examples of, like, we've got a bus situation, we got a schedule situation, we can only come for 2 hours. So we talk about what you can do in 2 hours, talk about what you can do in 3 hours or 4 hours. And there are the regular field trip packages, and there's also curriculum packages that we have. The curriculum packages are all standards-based. We give suggested grade levels, but we have customized for many different grade levels over the last couple of years that we've had them, and I have a few of them with me today. Once you sign up for them, you are sent the curriculum. We don't monitor how many lessons you do or you don't, but the more that the teacher does, the more students will get out of their experience at the Cosmosphere. And then they're all based around a culminating experience at the Cosmosphere, and they've been really well received. Oh, I wanted to mention, almost everything we do is now available in Spanish. Laura is fluent in Spanish, and we have other resources. We have things translated, and we are there for you with Spanish services. And I wanted to mention we have many movies that are available in the digital dome. They're available for schools. They're not available for the general public. So what you see on the website that is currently being shown to the general public is available, but we have many others, and just contact me and I can talk to you about that. And we sometimes take grants. And we can't predict, you probably know that story, and we like to do wonderful teacher trainings with these grants. So read our emails, because you just never know what might pop up. We're working on something pretty cool for February for teacher and other educator training. Might have stipends, we're hoping. So read our emails and keep up with that. And, oh, do we have the outreach? Yes. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. If it's just impossible to physically get your groups to the Cosmosphere, we have a robust outreach program. We can send educators to you. We have been doing a lot of remote Skyping in type thing through GoToMeeting.com. In fact, we have a large group coming from Mays soon that just didn't have enough time to do everything they wanted. So we're going to start with a remote Dr. Goddard's lab before they come, get them interested in the Cosmos Theater and figure out everything else there. We also have astronauts come through all the time. We have a very famous pilot coming through in a few weeks who flew the SR-71 huge jet we have hanging in our lobby. And we'll be Skyping him out to schools, and let me know if you're interested in that. And that's about it for my talk, but to continue on our outreach and remote possibilities, Laura's going to talk about our very recently launched web-based programs. Here you go, Laura.
So like Helene mentioned, our education program is just a buzz. We're really excited to present this to you. The best way to present it, I think, is to let it do its talking. So I have it all set up on the iPads. Could you help pass them out to this side? Grab some of those in a second. So I'm going to just hand these out to you, and we'll, so you can see what the options are. And we'll have your devices. We gave you a folder.
Laura, does everybody get one? Or?
I think we'll have enough there.
Oh, all right.
Okay, so there's a passcode on the iPads, and it's 00 and then the year 2017, 002017. 002017. And you should already be open to this webpage right here. This website is education.cosmo.org, which is on a handout that we'll give you. Good thing you have folders. Handout. Education.cosmo.org, and you can see all the different programs that we have so far. And we have a bunch of other programs in the works. We have a whole astronomy continuum from K all the way up through 12, all these different programs. The names are listed on the handout that we'll give you. That'll be up here soon. And all of them are going to be available in English and Spanish, like Helene mentioned. And some of them we even have in German, getting to our international science part. So we are going to go ahead and sign in the top right corner. There's an account sign in. This platform that we're using is great. You can see at the bottom we have 8 different learning management systems, LMSs. These are the most common ones. So if you're using one of those in your schools, you can sign in with that login. You don't have to create a new login or anything. We're going to sign in with one from the education. So if you click on the G for Google and connect if it pops up, it'll open up an option. You can select EDU, DEPT, Education Department. It's education.cosmo.org, and that one should sign in automatically for you. If it doesn't, let me know if you have any problems getting there. We all get there? Okay, so I want to show you a couple of these programs, the curricula. Solar System Bracelets is an activity, and this one is free. You can download it, get online, log in with your own login and download it. There's a K through 4 and a separate program for 5 through 8. It's the same basic program. The 5 through 8 group has to do a little bit more mathematical calculations to learn about some of the scaling in the solar system, so it's a little bit more advanced than the K through 4. But we'll have a look. If you click on the picture for the solar systems K through 4, and then down below it says View Resource, we're going to touch on that to open it up. It should look about like this. Okay, so did you get there? Okay. So on this one, you can see this is an outline of all of the content of this program. Space Junk is a lot more elaborate because it's a full curriculum. So this one just has this one unit here. And if you click on the top one, that's the lesson plan. And so you can see the lesson plan. It's a really attractive and complete lesson plan. It has all the information you'll need for this lesson. This is the solar system bracelet you'll make in the lesson. I have one here on my wrist. It's a bracelet. So you can see it. I'll walk around with it real quick. There's actually 2 which just is a 5 through 8. So you can see the picture, and if you scroll down, you can see all the different components, the lesson plan, materials. There's not very many materials in this particular lesson, so it's really nice to be able to do. It's a pretty simple, basic lesson. And then the kids get a take-home, which is just awesome. And so these are the bracelets. You can see there's two different kinds. The 5th through 8th grade bracelet has the clear beads on it. Those are spacer beads, and they have to do the calculations to determine how many you need. And that's the scaling as how far apart the objects in the solar system are. So those are what the bracelets look like, and there's a great picture there. Any information you need, additional information that's not in this lesson plan, like in the materials, you'll see you need some information sheets, solar system information sheets, and that's right there. It's a link. You can click on it and open it up. Really convenient, right there for you. And there's a PDF that you can, this is a PDF that you can print. So that's the basic outline of the programs. I'd like to show you Space Junk to show you a more complete version as well. So if you click up in the top left-hand corner, there's a back arrow. And we're going to go back to the product, and it'll look like this. So click on that a couple of times until you get back to the products. And we're going to open up Space Junk. So click on Space Junk and then View Resource in the bottom. And once you're there, you can see that this one on that's the left-hand side. On the left-hand side, there's a couple of different lessons. If you touch on one of those lessons, like one of the ones way at the end, it'll jump you to that lesson. Or there's little arrows on the other side that you can just step over. So we're going to go into lesson 2. So you can use the arrow, or you can click on lesson 2 in the left-hand column. We're going to open up the lesson plan, which is the top option under lesson 2. And this one I want to show you because it shows you some of the options for what the students would see, what the options are for worksheets and the online questions. The great part about this platform is that it automatically integrates to your LMS, your learning management system. So if there's a multiple choice question on here where the answer is automatically graded, that will automatically report back to your gradebook in your LMS that you're already using, so you don't have to transfer anything. So you'll see this is the same layout as the other lesson plan and solar system bracelets. And down below materials, we have the worksheets. The Race to Space Estimations is the worksheet that we would use. You can open it up, and this is what the students would see. This is their worksheet. And you can see it has a great picture of the artifact of Sputnik 1 that we have in the Cosmosphere, Hollow Space Museum. This is a flight-ready backup, so it says that below in that caption so that students and teachers know what it is. And below we have a historic picture of Explorer 1, which is the US's response to Sputnik. So in this lesson, the students take an active role in history. The story sort of unfolds before them as if they're taking part of it. It instructs them to be like an engineer working for Jet Propulsion Laboratories, JPL, and then they have to do certain calculations to help build and launch Explorer 1. So if we go to part A, down below Explorer 1, you'll see that this is what their assignment is. They have to measure Explorer 1, this is a scale drawing, and they'll do some calculations and convert it from centimeters to meters, and they do some great things. And below that, there's some tables. The tables pop up bigger for the students, and they can write on them to fill in their answers. And so you can see some of the options that we have for the questions and the interaction that the students get. One more thing I want to show you in Space Junk. If we go back up at the top, the back left arrow, until we get back to the outline, about 3 times. If you go over to lesson 3, this lesson, again, the students take an active role in history, and it says, I choose to go to the moon. From Kennedy's speech, we choose to go to the moon. We actually have his speech down here. It's an audio file. You can listen to it. The text is there below, so you can review it with an image of the Cosmosphere exhibit. And then this one is actually a writing assignment. And I'd like to show you how this works when you go to assign this assignment. So if we go back to this page, go back 1. And we're going to click on the 3 dots next to the lesson plan for lesson 3. And it should come up with a little box like this that says View Resource or Assign Resource. If we select Assign Resource, you'll see that there's an option for a course that you can assign it to. I have a demo course there. And so if it's assigned to that, it was previously assigned there, I already assigned it. You can click reopen. And it opens it up to a teacher view. If you go to the bottom again, if we look at that question that they can answer, there's some information that the teachers can look at. So you can see how many have completed it. If it's a scored question, you can see that automatically, and you can click on full results to see all the answers that the kids have submitted so far. If we go up to the very top, in the middle, there's a teacher view option. You click on that and you can change it to a student view to see how it would look for the students. You can see where they're going to put in their essay or their paragraph and submit your work. And lastly, go back up to student view up at the top in the middle, student insights, and you can see some different information for each of the students. I was a student on this lesson, and it's 0% complete. I have 0 views in 0 minutes. I haven't logged on at all, so if it's the day before and you're curious, you can know exactly how much time your students have spent on it. And so that gives you a pretty good overview of the web-based programs that we have. These are student-centered and teacher-guided. It's not an online program specific, it's web-based. It's blended learning, so that students can really get engaged and have some cool connections, especially to the Cosmosphere with our world-class artifact collection, even if you're maybe not able to visit or if you want to bring it into your classroom more. And Helene mentioned that these programs are all co-curricular, so they involve science, math, history, reading, writing, art, group presentations. Outside of the co-curricular, we have group presentations, we include rubrics. If you go back to the other tab and cancel out of assigned to students, in lesson 4 you can see a rubric, Explorer 1 Reconstruction rubric, for the authentic assessment aspects. And so for the presentations of the group work that they do, we have these rubrics included here, and there's a printable version, so if you want to print it and write on paper, you can do that. And so this is the web-based programming that we've been working on in the education department. Like I mentioned, the Solar System Bracelets activity, both the K through 4 and the 5 through 8 are free. You can download them and use them in your classroom. All you need are pipe cleaners and these beads to represent the major objects of the solar system. And the full curricula that we have, those are $15 a license. And if you decide to come to the Cosmosphere, you can come for a discounted price, $375 off, so it's $5. And as a customized mission pass, you can do, for example, if you were to do the Space Junk curriculum online, you could come to the Cosmosphere and see the Space Junk movie that we have, and you could do some special projects there. Are there any questions?
You said it's $15 a license for each student, or
for the curriculum.
And then that would give you access to just one of the units, or for the whole?
Yes, so there will be, as we get more units up there, there will be bundles that will have multiple, we'll have like all access, because sometimes, like if we're doing this at a curriculum director level or at a district level, you don't necessarily want to buy just for 4th and 5th, you might want the whole spectrum. And so as the astronomy continuum goes up, that's what we'll do, is we'll bundle it so you could have multiple grade levels there.
Well, let me make sure I understand. So you're saying it's $15 per kid. Let's say we want to do Space Junk. So it costs us $15 per kid just to do a Space Junk unit. Or any of them that's open to that grade level. And then if you add on this, it would be $20 per student if you added on the Cosmosphere experience.
And then, so if you wanted another unit, it'd be another $15.
It's a lot. That's pretty high.
It's cool.
We've had very, very good feedback on the people that have done Space Junk just in our first iteration of it. And the more the schools take advantage of the lessons, we provide an enriching experience that they get. So we do provide a lot.
Is that a lifetime license or a one-time?
It depends on the program. It could be either a year or a lifetime.
So we do, one of our field trips every year is fifth grade space jump. So we do that already. We'll pilot it in one of our redesign school. We're going to pilot this one year. I know we're in a pilot too. Our problem is the person that was piloting is the one that passed. So that's why I haven't been back with you yet. Yeah, we're piloting too, but yeah.
And we did all the visits and everything. We had the grant last year and we did all the stuff, which was awesome. Yeah.
Any general questions about the Cosmosphere? Anything that needs Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I want to mention a couple of things. I forgot to mention that you can send a group every year. Our programs are progressive and we have so many different topics that we cover. So if you're in the thought that we'll send our second graders every year and that's it, or we'll send our fifth graders every year, you could expand. We have so many different things that we cover. And then these bags right here, please take one as you leave. They are from our Educator Appreciation Days. And we have some vendors that wanted to contribute. So there's some goodies in there for you.
Thank you so much.
Don't forget to get your.
Or you can leave them.
We don't need a bag.
No wonder. Just keep
Teacher appreciation is me.
Does anybody have any questions before they leave? They don't need to stay for the rest of our meeting since we'll talk about different topics.
Okay, well, should we just come back at some point?
No, because why don't we just count and see how many we have and then
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
I will say, if you guys have not been to a professional development with the Cosmosphere, you should go.
Thank you for saying that. I think we do an awesome
it's
job
like-
in our
It
educator
was
training.
one of the best professional development.
And even those
Want
on
them
Saturday
free too.
mornings, the ones that take my teachers just love those on Saturday mornings, like Dawn.
That is really good feedback because, I wish we could tell you at the beginning of the year what we're doing, but sometimes it's like, we gotta wait till this NASA grant comes through. And that's why I really encourage you to read your emails. They'll either say they're from the Cosmosphere, or they may say they're from me, depending on how we send them out. But Saturday mornings you like?
Yeah, well, one thing that I learned is once they give up Saturday morning, go to one. That's hard. Saturday mornings are hard. Once they go, then those are the ones that keep going back. It's just like, if you get them to go once, then they'll go every single time because they're so good. Yeah.
How we get on your email list? You're talking about an email that gets sent out.
Saturday,
Do I need to-
emails either.
Could you maybe let's send around a thing. Can we send you our emails and then you can put us in?
Yeah, I was gonna ask to copy that list if
Oh,
everybody's
there.
on
That's
there.
perfect.
I do sometimes have a problem with different districts just don't want to take certain things. So another thing you can do, my card and Laura's card are in your folders. Just send us a little email, and then I think the computers will read there's already a relationship, and that can help too. So
I can get you a copy of that, so I count it out and goes into extra.
try not to too noisy.
No,
Oh, you're fine.
I'll copy it.
All right, we will just continue on with our getting started activity, and I believe we were over. Oh. It is your turn. Back to your photos. All right, which number are we starting with?
30.
30.
Okay, so 30 is the, our staff staring at the solar eclipse. We're getting instructions from, we took the entire school out to try to do some connection with relevance. asking our science teachers to lead some discussions, and science teachers were like, well, everybody needs to have this information. So we ended up with an entire student body out there, hoping to do some increase in our science, upper level science curriculums for that. The next one is our board planning meeting, defining who they are. Our board members come in, we spend about an hour and a half just doing some activities, defining who we are, who we want to be, where we want to go, what do we want to redesign. The next one is our relevance curriculum and instruction piece. I did a presentation at our professional development. Our mission down there is continuous improvement to develop successful learners. So we took a hashtag of Dragon Success and talked about how we were going to get on our Dragon bus, move through horizontally through each of our grade levels, vertically into our buildings, to develop our curriculum, to develop our classroom instruction that works. And then you see our picture of our high school graduate there with the board outcomes. I stressed out my art teacher, asking her to be a freehand drawer while I was talking. So you'll see some pictures of our principals on there that she pre-drew. And then when we were talking about horizontal alignment, she put their faces horizontal. When we were talking about vertical alignment, she put their faces vertical. It brought some chuckles, a little light nature to curriculum mapping and instruction. The next picture is my two new counselors. We're working on IPS, scope and sequence, making sure we're going across. And then the next one, if you haven't seen our two high school social studies teachers, hashtag buzzworthy if you're on Twitter. These two have really moved social or technology integration to make relevant connections. They have both ditched the textbook. There are no textbooks in our high school social studies classrooms. They are using things like slide missions. There's too many to list, but they are hashtag buzzworthy. If you want to see any of their stuff, they're willing to give it out to you. They use Google Classroom, and it just, the engagement and the relevance has drastically increased in our high school social studies.
Oh, okay. Mine are on number 5. I think I did 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And they're all in the same class because I did tours of all the buildings yesterday and forgot to take pictures until I was in the very last classroom. Does anybody else do that? That's the entire reason I thought I'd go out and visit. I needed to visit the classrooms and I needed to take pictures, and I got to the classroom and went, oh, I haven't been taking pictures. So anyway, this is our high school video production class.
What number are you in?
Number 5. And the first one is we have a community volunteer that comes in also and works in with our parents, or not our parents, or this class. It's a very hands-on class. And so number 5 is one of our volunteers helping the students using all the technical gadgets that have to do with the video productions. Page 6, some of you have had the Ukrainian visitors probably hopefully come through, and they went in and participated with our video productions class yesterday, and today's the big senior football game, so they actually recorded Go Panthers, and they'll be on the news today at 10:30, so they got a chuckle out of that. Page 7 again, or picture 7 is also a team of students working together on a video production. I think they're doing like the history of the high school or something right now. It's pretty cool. And picture number 8 is actually a student in front of the green screen, which I think a lot of you guys have that. And then picture number 9 is also in this class is our robotics class, and our robotics competition mats and everything are in there. It's a very large room, and that's just one of the robots in there. That's it. I think one thing our Ukrainian visitors said after visiting Bueller and visiting us, because we were the day after Bueller, and they were our students visited with them, and the students asked them questions, what was different. So one of the things that they thought was really different is how more hands-on learning our students are than what they have. There's just more of a sit and get, and our students get to be so involved, you know, because we, probably like you guys took, and today I think they're at Hutch High going through the tech lab. But, or they're not their tech lab, but their CTE courses and stuff, but they just were impressed with how more hands-on our students were.
I'm 28, 29. 28 is the one with it's a classroom with a bunch of green baskets and some teachers sitting together. And this was Monday of this week, actually. We had a PD day. And so this is a group of our kindergarten teachers. We're really working on mathematics instruction this year. And so this was a cross-building grade level meeting. So 20-some kindergarten teachers together from across the district, collaborating on math instruction, and get some great feedback about how some of the buildings that have either pilot teachers or more experience with some of the resources are really bringing the other buildings along. And I feel like this kind of activity leads from relationships, the rigor, the relevance, lots going on there. And then in the next photo, you can see that's actually one of our classified staff members doing the note taking for a social contract. We're Capturing Kids' Hearts District. So our groups start the year by building a social contract. So in my mind, this is all about just building that culture for learning in the district. And I just posted those two.
Mine's number 19. And so it's, you'll see a group of kids who stand in front of a yellow screen. That was at the KSD conference last week. And our alternative high school, presented there as a showcase school, and they were there for high school graduation rates, but they were showcasing their gaming concepts curriculum. And it's a curriculum that the principal, Christy Custer, built. She developed that. She said, well, how did you know about that? And she said, because I know how to teach. And so
she's not a gamer.
No.
But she wrote the curriculum.
Yeah. And so they've got some different people that are looking at that now. But the other teacher that's in that picture on the right, Mike Russell, he is a gamer. And so he wanted to start that. We have, through our education foundation, grants that they can request or apply for. And so they wanted a grant last spring and purchased all these screens, computers, tables, chairs. And so they presented that at the KSD conference. And they have already, the students that are involved in that are at about a 92% attendance rate in alternative school. So then that's huge. So that's what they did. And mine's picture number 14. And I was fortunate enough to be able to take the 5th graders to the Sedgwick County Zoo for the fire safety. So it's I don't know, I guess I think it's building some community connections there, and allows them to, it's not just fire, it's the police are there, Westar's there, it's huge, lots of kids there. We froze, but it was fun. I do it every year. That is free for 5th graders, so I don't know if you guys know about it, but 5th graders can take it. It's every day in October during fire safety week. So it's at the Sedgwick County Zoo.
My pictures are 35 and 36. We, in the high school, we had a community service day for 9 through 12. It started as a service project, for, I don't remember which one, but one of the, I don't think it was the student council, I'm not sure. But anyway, so then the K's got involved and all the organizations got involved. So it worked for all the organizations because it's a small school. The kids are in all the organizations. So anyway, and so the community, we worked with the community, the CARES committee, and it was Paint the Town. So they went through and painted buildings that just needed
35 and 36s.
Great project.
I like the owl.
Okay, well, here we go. I'm gonna, I'll talk about 1 and 2 first. I just loaded them. We have a few years ago got rid of our elementary art position, and so we actually have a consultant that it's actually worked out pretty well. In retrospect, it was maybe a pretty good move, although teachers may not agree with it. We have an art consultant we pay. She's a retired art teacher at the high school, and what she does is she comes up with projects that for each grade level that integrate their curriculum. So she emails them ahead of time and says, what are you covering this week in math or social studies or English? And then they tell her their topics, and she gives them specific art projects to go with their curriculum. And then they get together 1 hour, and she has them create the project as the teacher, and then the teacher fills to go do that. And so this was the art from a first grade classroom on geometric shapes. And so the first picture is from a first grade student, and so there's a second picture in different buildings on integrating, I think one of them was integrating triangles and one was integrating polygons and something else. And so she comes up with these projects, and they vary from Indian culture to whatever. And so that's actually been a way of integrating art that I think that we see more art by doing it this way than when we had an art teacher that went from building to building for just a few days. Every semester we shared an art teacher. And then the next one is number 12. And I know that Carmen Sizer at McPherson is also a classroom, but
That door looks off.
you're familiar from there. We have, if you haven't read the book Wonder, I would highly recommend you read the book Wonder. And have your 5th grade classrooms read the book Wonder. It's really about a 5th grader who has a cranial disfiguration. And it's about choosing to be kind to people that look and act different than you.
And the movie comes out in November.
Yeah, and so.
Julia Roberts.
That's right. So Jessie is, and Carmen too, is they are a certified kind classroom. And so it's their whole theme for the year, and they get to go screen the movie for free, take their classrooms and go screen, and then have a Q&A with the actors after the screening. And so the book it's about social emotional learning, and so 5th grade is really your target class for that. And so highly recommend they read it aloud, you know, sort of read it aloud. Wonder. It's actually what a AYA book. I read it. I thought it was really great.
My adult book club read it.
Yeah.
Just ordered 6 copies. With circles.
Yeah, it'd be a great, I mean, lots of great messages in it.
Just a couple of photos starting at number 24. And this is a self-serving photo. This is our son.
Dang,
Carter.
that is one good-looking young man right there. Who is that?
Who is that? That's our son Carter. Carter's a member of the Lindsborg Swedish folk dancing group, and it's not directly tied to the school system per se. It is a nonprofit, separate organization. But you don't run an organization like that without a lot of support from your school system. And the reason why I chose this particular photo is because Morgan on the right, she's holding a violin. We have a strings program that starts in 4th grade, goes all the way through the senior year, of course, so 4th through 12th. When these kids dance and they perform, the music is live, and it's performed by kids who have come to become proficient, very good at stringed instruments. So that's Avery on the left and Carter and Morgan. And of course, then the next photo, 25, is just a quick shot. That was from Saturday at Hillings Fest. We had our biannual Colt Festival in Williamsburg. Call it the Dala Colt Festival in Williamsburg. But I chose those photos as representation of cultural and arts appreciation. Those kids get an outstanding experience with that, and travel. The boys have been in Europe and across the United States as a part of this organization, so enjoyed that. Then I also had 26 and 27, and those are just some quick screenshot captures of a couple of the posters that we were using in our district leadership team recently to get to a final decision on our Rs for our school. So this is what was up there.
I have a question. I want to know if Cindy's the one that sews the costumes for all of us.
Oh, yes, yes, no, I hired mine done, thank you very much.
So do you guys have people in the community that actually sit and sew all those? Because they're so beautiful,
yeah.
and the costuming.
Yeah, they're handmade,
is
they're
so
not
authentic
Yeah.
and.
They are authentic and they are researched, so they actually, for some of the families who have Swedish heritage, they'll actually select something from the area of Sweden that their family comes from.
And the two girls
So
are
much
actually
culture,
from
so much.
their region.
Whatever.
Carter's is not, because we don't have any Swedish heritage, so, but his was designed after us, his vest is very unique, and so.
Well, McPherson does the different plaids, isn't that where they do their Scottish festival? Maybe it's no longer, I didn't know it's no longer a thing. No longer a thing.
I have picked number 24. And this is just in our district, I think this is our third year. We implemented Avid starting at the middle school, and we are school-wide there. And then this year we implemented with freshmen at the high school, and we'll move that up through seniors. But this is just a real quick picture of something new they did at the middle school this year. As part of Avid at the beginning of the year, the parents and the students have to sign a contract. What they do is they interview to be in Avid, and the parents are part of that process. And then if they are selected, they come to an evening, kind of like a family night, and they have a signing where they have a contract that the parent and the student sign. So they kind of set it up like a college signing, like if they were going to go play sports somewhere or whatever and have a background. We have an awesome guy in the technology room at the middle school that does photo stuff, so I'm sure he created that background for them to do. But really just kind of a way, Avid obviously is to work with rigor. In this case, building relationships with the parents and the school, and then really post-secondary success in a nutshell with Avid. That's what you're trying to do, is get those kids in a good place when they leave us after high school graduation. The next one is 45. This is just a picture for those of you that are starting to look at science curriculum. We did elementary last year. Actually, we did a pilot last year of all the Project Lead the Way curriculum with one person in each building, which are my site coordinators. Went through, did some curriculum alignment and mapping through the evaluation process, determined which modules to purchase through Project Lead the Way. But as you're moving forward, if Project Lead the Way is something that you're looking into, one of the things that they have changed is the initial training that's required for the teachers. They cannot teach Project Lead the Way until they have 16 hours of training. So we adopted, and the very first 3 days, 2.5 days of professional learning that we've had with teachers have been focused on Project Lead the Way. It's very collaborative, hands-on. They revamped it because they felt like in the past they were getting feedback that teachers were not prepared going in with, I don't know if it was just 10 hours of training or what they were providing before, but it's very intense, it's a lot. So if it's something that you're thinking about adopting and even looking at it, besides the fact that it's really expensive, it's great, but it's expensive. There's a lot of training involved, but just know that the teachers will be prepared to implement following that training. So, and that really, I see that as relevance and rigor with our science. We did also, just on a side note, we didn't adopt all the modules because there's some overlap with some of the modules and you would be overkilling some of the standards. And there were a couple, we had a few little gaps. So we did adopt mystery science as well. I think Karen had told me about that last year maybe. Was it mystery science? Yes, so we use that kind of as I'll call it our supplement, where we fill in the gaps where the modules don't. And the teachers really like it. It's easy to use, it's inexpensive, and it's online, it's engaging, and they like it. So, all right, I'm done. Let's do this. Let's take is 5 minutes enough, or do we need 10 so you can go do what you need to do? 5? Let's do a 5-minute break, run to the bathroom. If you need to make a call, do so, and then we'll move forward with our agenda.
And then at the end,
Do they say on there?
yeah, I have it. I'm sure I have mine up this week. Every Monday, Monday morning, I always have this print out, and I even watch it because it's like one way to read one Monday morning. But, and I can sort of like
Just a couple things I'm like, pay attention, I'm like, I can't. Sorry.
that's how
But it's still good.
my teachers, they said, you know what? They were just waiting in line to make sure.
So how do you know the photo number just for that?
Yeah, it's literally like this is what we want you to look for.
Okay.
But listen to people.
It tells you the
So
number.
that's how you know how far down you are.
So the last one loaded, it wants you to know the lower number.
Right.
Here's the previous.
Yeah, so they all the numbers.
Anybody else watch Mystery Dad Live Excitement?
Last year, I was Caitlin's first year of college, so I sent her,
Hey, anybody want to
that's a great one. And they were decorated inside, and they were all themed. And this just. It's forever, it's long.
Yeah.
It's got these little cards. I just started running them once a month, and I was like, this month, I'm just
High interest.
high interest level, yes, and very, so, choose a stand, so it's a stand, and, you know, just.
Like,
seriously. Because the way they age, the first year it's project. But then wherever they have a few gaps, and they supplement with. But that might be a third one, like, there's just a couple, but that might be something, even my middle school, that they don't get project the way they used to. And I don't let them do it, they teach us enough to do that now.
Yeah.
So they have to
look at it.
I'll write it down. We might go into teachers, big teachers.
7 a.m.
And I have it on my page.
Like the exercise. Right? I can't describe, like you look at it and you go, oh my God, $30 for a teacher. It's like an entire every standard. It goes
They see what you can find.
$20 to get that. Yeah, I yes, I'm gonna keep that. She gave me that, grab a little something. Fuzzy dad, I mean, all funny, funny, some of them are customers.
Okay, so like, oh,
Funny, yeah.
oh,
Usually the Bible.
Okay.
Just got best.
That's like the.
It's a
Exactly.
the state takes on the exact same thing.
It kills me. I mean, I know. So you sit down and replace it. $48 after classes because you get so many. I mean, and 3 cups. So that braces, everything. I think his job is a little bit. we're losing or drive over it or
Uh-huh.
luckily,
Yep.
we got to go to the reg and
Yep,
it's
now it's 3 times the size.
For his bachelor's, his dad's a dentist in city and knows him. So he called Kayla, like you went to the booth, you talked to her, she's the home.
Yeah,
that's
that's
where
where
I
I
was during the week. I gotta get my teacher registered, who just like she wants to.
All right.
Yeah, you better.
About 1 more minute and we'll go ahead and get started.
Your three, which one is it?
Mine's basically.
Really?
Mindy, this might be a good time for you to pop in your questions.
Yeah, I mean, I just have crazy questions.
We didn't have as many, just that you wanted to ask. And if anybody else has some questions about things, just feel free to do that right now.
The first one is kindergarten redshirting. You know, now that, full day kindergarten, we're not charging for it anymore. And we had this problem even when we were charging for it. It's not, I wouldn't say it's a problem, but we're getting more and more people that don't want to pay daycare. So we're getting all these kids that are wanting to come to kindergarten for 2 years. Even if they don't need to be in kindergarten for 2 years, you know. And we still have a problem with several families only wanting to send their kids half day. And then they are so far behind. Yeah.
I'm gonna ask everybody about that too.
Okay.
We still have a half-day program.
Do
We're
you?
wondering how long we will need to, and how long there will be.
Ours is a handful, but of course it's the handful that need to be there all day.
I got you.
You got it?
No, I threw it in.
Oh, okay. I'm like, you're not gonna. I
Good.
said, good, what's the answer? You're awesome. You're awesome.
She wanted some exercise.
Anyway, we just didn't, you know.
We had for the first time this year, we had full day kindergarten for hours. But the first one this year, it happened to be that wanted to do the half day just because the mom felt, he's not quite ready for kindergarten, but if he could go for 2 years.
Let's send it out to pay preschool.
Well, she's a stay at home. I mean, so there's
We
nothing,
have full day for
nothing
preschool there.
current. There's no issue, there's nothing there. But we did do that with a kiddo who was on the spectrum, and they're friends with that family. Because that kid did need those 2 years to, that was needing that kid was needing. So we're saying now, if you're going in now, we're not gonna make you choose. Your kid's starting now or they're starting next year, your choice. If you want to redshirt them, that's the best thing to do, but do that. And then if they start this year, if during the year the teacher feels, then we'll have that conversation, but we're not having a conversation that you're gonna go 2 years. Right. Absolutely. Because our kindergarten classrooms are 27 and 28 in buildings now.
Well,
Absolutely not.
And the first we're having that problem with we finally came up with had to be a team, I'm sorry, I'm stumbling all over myself, but we came up, actually had to come up with a little sheet that had certain criterias for even the 4-year-old program, if they could stay another year.
Right.
They had to meet these 5 things before they let them stay. If the parent wanted them to be retained, then they had to, can't do that kindergarten, that's okay. But still, we finally had to set some criteria there because we had registering because of, they wanted them to be bigger when they had basketball.
Fourth grade is, kindergarten is, it's half day, it's not mandatory to go anyway. We have one every couple of years, and they usually by Christmas time, so I would dump the half day program. I wouldn't even have a half day
And
program.
2 full classes, so we figure, we had enough demand for like 40 kids,
That's crazy. You would think they'd want them in there full day, so they would be right where they needed to be.
And I was just thinking, just saving on daycare costs. I mean,
I'm wondering if we don't have the program and we still have that kind of demand for it, they'll just take their kids somewhere else, but we'd rather have them.
Right.
We'd rather have the kids. So, but back to Mindy's question about redshirting, our board policy, is predates me, it just has come in handy for this. Our board policy states that retention is ultimately the decision of the building principal. And so we're trying to make sure parents know that. If we get wind that they're planning to do 2 years of kindergarten, then we tell them after the first year of kindergarten, it may not be your choice. I mean, it won't be your choice. So that then they can reconsider.
We have that. So it's probably like ASB.
Yeah, it gets ugly on occasion. But that gets the word out though, when that happens.
There are some
Well,
coaches
and
out
so
there
many of
that
our
that is
parents-
strategy. There are some coaches out there that is strategy.
Lynchburg, everybody brings from
I mean,
kids.
Because I've, outside of school, there's some coaches out there that redshirting is a strategy for them to get them bigger win baskets.
Well, I think our deal is, all of our parents work now, and we don't have a 5-day-a-week preschool. And if they're gonna get them to preschool, they have to find someone to take them from their daycare to preschool, and it's a pain in the rear. And so they're like, hey, I can just send them to kindergarten 2 years in a row. It doesn't cost me anything, they get on the bus, they come home with their brother and sister. It's, yeah, how
Use
great
and
is
abuse
this?
this.
How great is this? This is the best thing ever. So I think we need to just say,
We're not doing that, and we've never had that until this year, and we've had, again, full day kindergarten for 20 years. So.
okay, and then my other question is, hot topic in our district right now, especially with redesign, because we are a Gemini school district redesign, and it's just really a volatile issue because some people feel so strongly about it and some people don't. AR.
Oh, don't know.
That's a hot topic.
That's a hot topic in ours too.
Oh, man.
Who's not even speaking.
Okay.
Media specialist would watch it me during the night.
Okay, I just feel, and this stays in this room. I'll have to cut all your hands off. I just feel it's lost. Okay, I'm gonna do it personally. I have 3 kids. One kid does his reading, gets his points, he doesn't read again. Doesn't complain about it, just complies. I have one kid that I have to ground her from reading because seriously, that's all she does. I have one kid that doesn't watch TV, doesn't play video games, all he wants to do is play outside, and I literally have to hang him by his toenails, read aloud to him to get the frickin' AR done. And so he had to have so many points by 3:30, what is today? Wednesday, if he was gonna go on the field trip on Thursday.
That's what I'm on.
And I mean, he bawled, I bawled, his brother and sister were pissed, everybody was mad.
Nobody likes to
And
read.
it doesn't promote reading.
nobody is gonna, he will never take a book up again. You are not teaching that child the love of reading. But if I hand him Sports Illustrated, seriously, he'll read it cover to cover and tell me every single thing about it. So my point is having 3 totally different kids. One is gonna comply, do whatever, but then he's done. She's gonna read no matter what you do. And AR didn't instill that in her. And it hasn't helped her AR scores or reading scores at all, in my opinion. I don't think it's developing the love of reading for all kids. I don't think it's a one size fits all.
There's no research to support it.
No.
Our
You need to
middle
do a
school
book
is
study
this year
and
and
book
some
club.
others.
Yes,
That's it, our
I
middle
am
school is
right
really
now.
love.
Book
Our middle
club
school
is
is
awesome.
That's where I'm just,
No, so I will tell you, and I'm not, our middle school does it. The district, I will not pay for it, but our middle school does do it. And the model they showed them was really interesting. So I'm like, oh, I can live with it. They do like a fantasy football, it's fantasy AR. And teachers draft kids and they trade kids around and they're working as a team. And it's not, it's more fun with that as opposed to the.
Ours
but
determines
it's still,
eligibility.
yeah.
It's like high
AR,
stakes.
I don't think
Ours
AR
is-
itself
ours
is
is
bad,
amazing.
but I made sure that it.
I know.
It's, it's,
I know.
it's not the program, it's
And
how.
it's not
we've
all
morphed
buildings.
into
We
it.
got all
We got
buildings.
rid of it.
Using them.
Clearwater. When I came at Clearwater, they were using it high stakes too, but the state doesn't recognize AR. It's not a state, they won't recognize it.
Well, here's their big argument. So I met with my middle school ELA teachers this week. And how are you gonna hold them accountable to read? Why do we have to? Why give them an opportunity to read what they want to read? Because Noah, my youngest big complaint is, I never get to read what I want to read because I have to be at 25% by this date. I have to be at 50% by this date. So if he wanted to read Harry Potter, which believe me, he would not,
he could never read it because he'd never make those benchmarks.
And it's not his color.
Mindy,
Yeah.
we have,
Yes.
we,
And that drives me crazy when the librarian won't let
You're
them
gonna
check.
get my blood boiling here.
I know,
I just can't stand it.
When a kid goes in and wants to read something that the librarian will say, oh, no, sorry, that's not, you're not supposed to read that one. Whether it's below or above, it drives me nuts.
I had a teacher not
Nobody
let
tells
me
me
know.
that when I go into the
Reading
library and
interest.
I wanna check something out.
But you couldn't read one because it's below your.
I know, I would be allowed to read Wonder.
Book club is awesome.
Book club is
Book
great.
club is
Yes.
wonderful.
But at our house, we called it the damn AR because it's a
It's a book,
It's
it's
a
a philosophy.
but it is, we used to have it in our, all of our 4 elementaries. This was there when I came. And I've been exposed to AR because I was in Mindy's district before and other districts that have it. But what we ended up doing, we had somebody come in, do the training, because they had gotten so far out, I don't want to call it out of compliance or using with fidelity. That we actually had somebody come in, did a full day of training. This was a few years ago. And then what we've done over the past couple of years, we have one school that is still using it. And with them, they have to come up with a kind of an action plan or an implementation plan to use it more in a, it's not punitive at all, it's positive, but nobody else wanted to do it, so they're paying for it with their title funds. But what I wanted to tell you, you need to send somebody over. We have a phenomenal middle school media specialist who started this program called the Millionaires Club. Phenomenal. Kids want to read, they are engaged, and so you might, I may hook you up with somebody just to talk and come over, because she, even probably over the phone, she could probably convince your person that this is much better, because middle school kids are so hard to
Well, I
get on
just see
board
what
and
it's
they
doing
love it.
to my littlest one. He hates reading, so
Right.
This is not helping the problem at all.
Yeah.
High school kids, I have a high school kid that struggles with reading. But he will read a Farm Implement magazine cover to cover and tell me every technical thing about it, but there's no points. So, too bad, can't read that.
Book club would encourage that.
I just hate it, I hate it.
The book club, if I wanted to look into that, where would I look? Just Google
Book
club.
Got it, it's on
Yeah.
Amazon for penny kittle.
$10 to $15.
We ended up getting rid of it because it gave the same data as Ames Web or NWA. But our middle school chose to keep it too, so it's kind of expensive too. And we were gonna watch how much they really used it and such, but I like the idea of,
You need to,
yes, because I'm again, I just,
they
yes.
love it, and they have kind of an incentive.
So I would like
with
that
it.
contact too.
But the kids love it, and it's incredible, and I don't have the information or the data right now, but she's come and presented to the boards a couple times just about how much the kids are reading and how it's totally changed the culture of that school, and she's the best media specialist.
See, our high school kids are,
Will you guys me up
She
if
calls it Millionaires Club, and I'll get some
Send me
information.
her email, because I'd like
And
to
I'm
visit.
gonna put it in the, is there a seller?
Is our middle school kept it too?
Is there enough interest to really come for an afternoon?
Oh, yeah, I can talk to, would you guys want me to bring her out to talk?
Yeah.
That would be, she would love it. She's
Can you do it-
awesome.
Are you gonna do it in the afternoon, and then maybe I can bring my middle
I would
school
like to see our media specialist.
Okay, I'm on it.
The AR issue, like, I'm kind of curious because how that works when you have like some teachers who don't use it at all, right? I've got these teachers that don't use it at all because they're super opposed for it. You want to follow Rachel Harder, she's got this amazing reading program going in one of the buildings, and then I've got one building that's all in, like AR, and then how do you use AR versus the STAR? Like we use STAR, it seems like, in a lot of SIT teams.
See,
and we just not, the state doesn't recognize
I
STAR.
thought I was going to, we don't
And so
start up on my
did anybody
toes.
get rid of one and not the other?
Yes.
You got rid of which one?
STAR.
But you
So
kept
basically,
AR.
I mean, I'm not an AR fan, but it's not a hill I'm dying on. So I'm like, if you want it, we'll get a district piece, so you get a discount, and y'all are gonna pay for it. And then we talk about how much you're gonna pay, and it keeps going up, and so gradually, I just let it play. And so this year, I got rid of math first, and then we kept the math, the STAR math piece, and I got rid of that. And then this year, I got rid of STAR reading, And now they just have AR, and then they're just, I'm like, play with it if
It's
you
a lot of
want.
money for just AR.
We talked about we do keep it, you gotta keep it positive, don't drown them out of reading, but I never talk about it at district level, ever. I
So,
pretend like it doesn't
I'm
exist. That's
trying
what
to
I
phase
do.
it out.
I
I
phase
phase
it
it out
like
with
it doesn't
Star
exist.
first. I'm trying to phase it out, but if you went to my media specialist, I've got one that, she's in charge of the AR store, and it is about a $3,000 store. I mean, it is like.
We don't do that.
Our AR store is huge, it's ginormous, it takes over the entire library.
Yes, we don't do that. I get tired of hearing about the kids who don't get to go to the AR parties on Fridays or whatever.
It makes it punitive.
So, I'm trying to phase it out. so I get rid of Star
It
first.
could go against
My
the state
son
and
not been
civil
able to go to the state
standards.
capitol, which I believe is an educational field trip,
Not an AR.
not an AR, because it wasn't a reward.
No, that's.
I would have came unglued because of AR.
Which is so wrong.
It's so wrong. I came in the library at 3:45 Wednesday. He was sitting at a computer. I could just see big old tears. And the librarian's like, he's already flunked one, and all these people, all these adults are staring at him. I'm like, of course he has, and everybody leaves the room. I said, no, just relax, it will be fine, just do your best.
Well, this
He
is
was
breaking
at
my heart.
0.1 point away, and he's a seventh grader,
Malpractice.
big old kid.
This is like education.
Well, and a lot of it's the questions, the vocabulary in the questions of the AR test. The kids can't read the questions because the questions aren't at their level or their level of their book they're reading.
Or
So,
you can also be on the other end and
And
completely
it's
hate it,
too
haven't
low
read the book and take the questions and be fine.
yeah. And the kids know how to rig it now. They know how to get as
Yeah.
few points as possible, so they have as few books. And
Which
we
means
teach
it's about
them.
that as opposed to
I
reading.
just think it does not teach the love of reading to all.
No.
Maybe to some it does.
I know,
love
like,
to read.
and that's exactly right. My son is a reader. Like, his punishment, this is embarrassing to say, was, okay, you can't read for 2 days.
Oh my God,
Give me your
you're
books.
Satan all the time.
And so we had to confiscate his books. I mean, like ridiculous. But so he was like, he loved AR. I mean, he held the record for as many points as you could possibly have, whatever.
You did that.
And then I've got another kid who was yours, who was like crying, doesn't want to read.
It destroys yourself.
And it accomplished nothing. It didn't motivate my reader to read more, and it didn't motivate my poor reader to read more. I mean, it just, I'm absolutely,
You guys are helping me so much. on
I
this.
think when you see it at home, how it affects your kids at home,
You really see it.
realize.
I tell you, it is our biggest family stress. The whole family is yelling about Noah's AR.
Is it just
You
middle
know?
school? Is it just middle school now?
K-12.
It's,
Okay,
K-12. 2-12. 2-12.
Well, that was my first, that was last year, was my first year at Clearwater, and that was my
But
first
that's all he would read.
decision was to get rid of, that came up, AR did, because we just started other new assessments, and I'm like, what are you using it for? And everyone got rid of it except middle school, and that, I was fine if they were gonna use it.
For some reason, they hang on to that, but we take, so Cindy, we.
But I would
look
love
at it
to
as a
have
district,
that.
not at all.
in my year,
And
I think that might convince them.
Yes.
Yeah, it'll be part of the.
And I'll have her on my shoulder.
After they did the book study book club, our middle school did the book study book club, and they were all on board to drop it.
And that's what I'm.
That's probably
So
what
this
it
is
is.
something to replace
They
it.
did, the principal led them through the book study, and by the end of about midway through the year, they were asking me if they could drop it.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
But you know what?
My goodness, how they come up with it.
ELA, Drew Fit when I met with them this week, and that was one of our topics. And I said, they said, what are you gonna replace it with? I go, you guys, why do we always have to take something away and then replace it? What's wrong with taking things away? Because you have so much on your plates anyway. No.
This might be as do the kids. That's
Yes,
a stressor for kids they don't
yes.
need. On this STAR test, you guys are, because I don't know, I'm the teacher level, and guys, I'm with you. Anyway, the STAR test, it's not, you can't use it as one of your 3 testing requirements, is that right? Is there 3 that you have to have?
The state frowns upon the STAR, yeah.
They frown upon?
Well, I was
Use it.
under
did
the
you get that
understanding as a
information?
data leader, we could not use STAR. The state did not accept it as
Okay,
a,
but that's interesting, that's what we're using as our, I'm on the tech committee too, and that's what we're using for our justification for paying for STAR. Is that it's one of our testing requirements.
So you could probably just start off with contacting the state or finding the information that says that they don't support
So,
that.
mhm.
And there you go.
I think there is a document that says it.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna
I've
find
never
it
seen
because
that.
that's ridiculous that we're using that.
Okay, I'm so glad I could rile you all up.
Yeah, thank you.
Mission accomplished.
What do you got? What do you got?
Okay, let's move on.
Just real quick, Holly, I dropped an article into the agenda, it's sort of related, that I just shared with our media specialists. They're gonna use it for PLC discussion. It's,
Perfect.
you know, Fountas and Pinnell, they're the ones that
Yes.
came up with the levels. And now they've
Awesome.
come around and said, we're overdoing it, we should be using the levels to guide what
Yes.
kids read.
And when we took guided reading to the extent they did, that's not at all what they intended. It
No.
wasn't to have kids be stuck in a level, it was, is it, yeah.
By the way, I went to a Fountas and Purnell thing at the KSDE conference that Angie Selk had, and they're coming out with their new comprehensive ELA curriculum. Oh, just so if you're like adopting here, like, you know, at some point, would they had that, I would have adopted that. Well, I would have needed it, but I love it, don't get me wrong, but it looks really good. So it's still kind of in the process and they're developing it and some of the pieces are done, but when you get ready to evaluate, it's worth being one of yours that you look at, so just
Are they K-12?
That's a good question. I know it's at least K-8.
Typically K-8, I don't think it's
Fountain is F-O-U-N-T, Fountain, how do you pronounce it?
Fountas.
There, it's in her link there, Fountas and Pinnell. But I'll have to look, I have my folders back at my office, but yeah, they just came out with it and it looks really good. Okay, the next topic on our agenda is just redesign efforts, and this was something in the survey that was kind of scored. I think we kind of looked at the things that had 10 to 12 votes, I guess. And this was one of them. So we talked a little bit about how we could discuss this topic, not every single time, but keep it on our agenda and discuss it maybe every other month. So when we were talking, one thing my superintendent did was, and he does this for our administrative team, is he went in, and if you click on that first link, this will take you to the KSB website, and the districts that are noted or picked for redesign that have been selected by the state, whichever level, you know, there's the Gemini and all of those. Well, from what I can gather in the conversation from his is they're gradually, each of them are writing articles about their district. Oh, we are? Yes, you haven't gotten that far yet. So this will take you to the page where, and there's other articles melded in here with it, but it'll have the different school districts. Like here's Goodlands.
Oh, it's as KASB has their meeting.
It's their
In a
newsletter.
redesign area, they're putting.
They're doing it for their regional
I almost
meetings.
said
They're doing it for their regional meetings. They're
Okay,
talking
yes,
to those
regional
schools and
meetings,
they're
this-
sharing it.
yeah.
Okay, so you can see there's different articles. And I'm assuming, like, he added one into this document the other day. I don't remember who it was, but there's an article. So then and it's kind of a narrative. Then what Dr. Black did, oh no, okay. And I made a copy of this because I'm not using his original, but what he did was, and this is how we discuss it as an administrative team, is just, he summarizes it and kind of puts not really bullet points of what all of these districts are doing in a nutshell, I guess. So then what we do as an administrative team, and something we can do here, is we look at the different districts at what they're doing, and then of course we're not identified as any of these, we're redesigning, but we're not going to be writing an article or putting anything in here. So whether we use this to give us ideas or we look at it and we're like, well, we're doing that, and that kind of made us really not feel so bad because we're doing a lot of the things that many of the districts are doing, but just kind of gets us thinking about what we could do, what are we already doing as we move forward. And then what he does, and he just added, like there's Smoky Valleys. Is there anybody else in here? I saw Pratt.
We're in there.
And I think you're down here maybe. There's McPherson, and I just added Liberal was the newest article, and he added it last week. So as far as us meeting and talking about this is kind of what I wanted to visit with you about today. How do you see us, on a bi-monthly basis, taking this information, and this may not be the format that we want to use, and having conversations about what we're doing in our district, or sharing out, what do you see that looking like? Instead of me just saying, this is what we're going to do, because I really don't want to do that. Any thoughts or ideas?
I'm really more interested in the process than I am
what
the outcome.
Because this kind of stuff, I'll tell you.
So the plan is-
There's not much in this, and what these are is like what you're already doing, and and we've been in CQ how long, and we're just like,
So it'd be the
this is
plan.
not a remodel or this is not just a remodel, you are redesigning the whole
Wow,
kit
that's
caboodle, so this is not anything as to what's.
So maybe more about the
Gemini,
planning.
and our teachers are having a hard time with that. Thinking outside the box, and it's becoming very frustrated. They are becoming, and like Ginger told him the other day, guys, you can't just move the chairs on the deck of the Titanic. That's not redesign.
I mean,
You can't just rearrange the furniture.
Randy said it, I thought really, really well at the KSD annual conference last week, and it was just one little phrase, and it was, okay, like, if you want to do flexible seating in your classroom, do it. That's like number 41 on the list of things to do. That is not redesign.
Right.
Those are just little sprinkles.
So the article that was in the Lawrence Sherman World yesterday or the day before about not putting kids in graded classes, the elementary.
Well, that got people going.
Well, that's not new. Madeline Hunter wrote that book 25 years ago, 1992.
I have the
article.
book
I'm like,
graded on my
what?
on my shelf.
That's not.
No, and that was it.
I was like,
that was.
I mean, I think those 5 tenants that he looked at with the redesign at KSCE, those 5 areas, or 4, like longer school hours or longer, that's really redesigning. I mean, it's like project-based learning, that longer school days.
Personalized learning, project-based. He's got it's a circle, yellow circle, has redesign in the circle. And then there's the 4 areas, so personalized learning, project-based learning, longer time with kids and families, and deeply involved with the.
I took that picture, I can upload it
Yeah.
in
Oh,
the
that's
circle
great.
thing.
Yeah.
And you put it like right where I put the wording, and then just.
So you can see elementary, there's 10
I don't
structures.
see that as redesign. I see those things as, we know that's great stuff. It's more of a do it piece. This is like Nike. Let's just do it.
We always did that as our vision.
Just do it. Right, because we read Madeline Hunter's book on non-graded schools and really wanted to move in that direction. But then you run into all the hiccup pieces, and those are the pieces that we really need to be thinking about. Like, okay, so the feds are going to want to know how many kids do you have in each grade level, right? Everybody fills that out in the LCP. Yeah. So if that's a piece we know we're going to have to do, how do you do that in a non-graded school? Because we read the book. In fact, I had some.
What about when you went to college? See, that's like when we read, or when we watched The Success. Oh my gosh, most likely to succeed. I had so many questions out of that. Like, how are they getting around? Like, and I know they're detailed questions, and it makes everybody mad when I ask them because they're like, oh, well, you're just not seeing the big picture, and I'm like, right, I'm a realist. I know that I'm into the nuts and bolts, but class rank, what's your GPA? I mean, all of those things are requirements when you get into college, and like all of those things ask for that until. How do they work around that? I have a lot of questions about that.
And we can work with region schools about that kind of stuff. But even my son, on his own, just scheduled a college visit in Iowa. I'm like, oh God, that's out-of-state tuition. But it's not just us. And I can implement the non-graded piece. I could do that tomorrow. And part of what we ran into was the kindergarten pickup. You do have people who their minds cannot go there. Mm-hmm. But we were rocking it. We did a modified version is what I call it. And it's still not where I would love it to be. But it's not the redesign piece that's going to get us. It's the ability to work through some of those nitty-gritty pieces. And I downloaded the book that they're using, that they say they're using for the how the process piece. It's a Cross and Joptis book. It's out there on their website because I don't know why you're downloading it from, but I downloaded it from somewhere. So there's some pieces that we could easily look at.
Because
It's those
whenever I
pieces
look
that I
at
have
it,
questions about.
I think, like, a lot of people look at the redesign and they're still trying to put a square peg in a round hole.
I think
And
so.
that's
And they need to get
Absolutely.
rid of, if you're trying to still keep the same structure and adapt it.
Right.
And you can't do that. You can't adapt. You have to start over.
Right.
And
We have
that's-
outside stakeholders that, like you said, like the colleges, or how our communities are already set up for years of 100 years of being the way we are. It makes it really tricky.
yeah,
So there's that round hole.
community culture
Yeah.
is, you have to know your parent, so you don't get revolt against
Well, that's
the
a
community.
huge, and that's a huge issue. I mean, so
Yeah.
that's part of what we've,
Even though everybody
that's
is
a
right,
major part of
there's a
redesign
lot of
is getting
people who have to
communities
change. It's
involved.
not just the schools.
It's not,
There's a
paradigm
lot.
shift. It would be a
Yeah,
paradigm shift no
huge.
matter what changes
Well, and
for all your stakeholders.
And then I got a little pushback or questions about, okay, so now the new ESSA piece where 70% of our kids have to be in categories 3 and 4 on the state assessment by what, 2035? I'm hoping I'm retired by then. Hey, maybe there's a chance now. But those are all questions that people, you try to push them away from the state assessment. They go, well, yeah, but Teresa, yeah, but what about that? Okay, well, hold on. It looks different. It's not the same, but that's their mindset. That's their mentality, and breaking them out of that.
but it's doable.
It's tricky.
McPherson would have been that community that very much, newspapers, you wanted to look at the results, blah, blah. But with CQ, we kind of did a lot with that ages ago. And we've never, I mean, KSD protected us a little bit because our stuff didn't get released at the same time as everyone else for a little while. But our paper doesn't pick up on that stuff. They report about other things. It's not, nobody cares. We've downplayed it for so long that it's, I think the state's probably in that where but we've just been there as a community for so long that it just goes away. It just goes away.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from all of you is just kind of talking about thinking outside the box, planning for moving forward and how to redesign. And then there's a resource somebody was going to share on the redesign circle. So
It's called a playbook. And it's if you are a person that wants to go like this, this is how you do your vision. This is how you put your team together. This is how you do it. I'm not that person, so we don't use it very much. It's just out there for, I don't know, are you guys using?
Yeah, because when I downloaded it, I was like, yeah, let's put your team together. Okay, yeah, because it is very
structured.
Well, and it's pretty, it's stuff all
Like
of us,
what
I
we've
think,
done
would know,
before.
like, put the team together.
And it was just one of those things Jane had me put out there just in case they needed to fall back on.
And I do think one thing definitely we can do as we come back every other month and we talk about the topic is really sharing out. Maybe some of you are as you're moving forward, you truly are starting to do some things or thinking about planning to do some different things in your districts, and you can definitely share those out. So are we okay with that? Anything else?
I just think it's fun to talk about it. I mean, I think
It is fun.
super cool to
And I think
think
it
about
can
what
help
could we do.
for those of us that are actually in it to like ask you guys some questions. Like, okay, this is something we're talking about. What are you, so what are the things you see bigger picture? Because when you're in it, sometimes you don't see that anymore.
I do have a question for you guys that shown most likely to succeed. Did you show that to your entire K-12 staff?
We did it
Yes.
separately. So we started out with just our redesign teams.
Most likely to succeed.
Because I bought it to show, and it's expensive, when you buy the license.
I've got it too.
I've got it. And so I previewed it, and it felt like, did your K-5 feel like it didn't involve that?
So we watched it multiple times. We did what we called the drive-in for admin. So I literally did the big outdoor blow-up movie screen, and we brought lawn chairs and pop and candy and watched it in the summer so that they had a foundation, and then we built it. But we had those conversations about, okay, so how does that apply to you? What does that look like? How does that build into what happens at the high school? So we purposefully had those conversations as part of it. Otherwise, I do think that
Because it feels very directed towards high school.
it's very high school.
It is very much, but I think as we're going out and doing visits and taking our teams to go look at places, we're gonna take our elementary to see things in our high school, so they can see a bigger picture, and our high school, middle school, will to see the elementary
Right.
stuff.
So when you I was just thinking that video, because it's like, the video is like, this is like way out here. Like, I would have to preface like, okay, this is not my expectation that we're just gonna go to this, like, right, because it's gonna freak everybody out. But I don't know how to preface it for K-5.
Our
Well,
kids
we-
have liked it.
So you just say,
Yeah, this is where you guys, and they were so excited to be part of the region, right? So it was part of that. And actually Jay and Tammy brought it for those guys, and then I had it out for the other. So that one was at the Cosmosphere. And I had Steve Wyckoff, so it was more about, that's how I did that. I had Steve come in as more innovation. So it wasn't that it was about we're doing what high school high's doing, high tech high's doing. It's that we need to want to think innovatively and differently. So he was there to guide that conversation.
How long
So
is
that's
it?
what I was gonna ask.
it's about an hour and
It's
40
if you
minutes.
do that, are there people that can come guide the conversations that should happen after that? And you just said Steve Wyckoff is doing that. Is there anybody?
They
Well,
send
of course,
you,
they
they
give
send
you
you
a-
a, they'll give you a study guide that goes with it.
And I still
Which
think
walks
that's
through all of those.
to me, it needs to be, I don't know why it is that if they see the better. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm not the only one that thinks that.
And sometimes it needs to be more than like 60 miles away.
So there's a handbook or something that goes with it.
There's they'll send you, when you, did you get the guide, there's a study guide that goes with it? or-
Yeah,
it's online.
It's online.
Yeah, I think it's online.
So
Yeah,
is this, do you see this as kind of like your initial kicking it off, starting to think about redesign? Is this a resource that you're using for that particular purpose?
We watched it for you 3 or 4 years ago. I mean,
But
it's been 3 or 4
you know,
summers
I
ago.
was
so
at Annie,
I-
I was gonna show it as like, this is a option for redesign, like this is how one school redesigned.
Just
Like
give
they,
them a-
just give
just
them
to
like
get them
something
thinking
out there,
box,
like,
right?
and it's way out there
Right.
compared to where we would be at.
High school is in-
Where things are going
Right, yeah, I mean, this is like,
So
you
you have
see
to
how
purchase-
fundamentally you're gonna have to change.
This wouldn't be something we would want to watch and talk and have Steve come in and
Well,
talk to us about.
probably,
is
because
it?
they did, that's how this all started. Superintendent started watching it several years ago. And so they started having those conversations that we never did.
No, yeah,
Maybe? I don't know. 'cause I don't-
it'd be maybe worth seeing, because what I would like to have done is previewed it before I spent the $600 buying it,
Well, you should have.
you know, or
I
whatever.
was carrying around Steve Wyckoff's copy.
Just like,
I have the pirate cover.
so maybe it would be good to preview it, and then you can decide whether or not that's something for your
I'm
staff.
just gonna put it on here and everybody wouldn't have to, but that might be something we could have a breakout, you know, somebody.
Oh,
could
yeah, you can watch
do
it
that
after that.
And then have Steve, and so be school.
Angie, can you tell us a little more about, if you're a Mercury school, what's the support look like? So if people
Yeah.
kind of moved in.
So I will tell you this, it's intense because of the, not the work, but the time frame. Because we're expected to completely redesign and put something in place next August. Like
1 year.
completely in 2 of our buildings. And then we're adding on the other 4 buildings. So I've got 3 elementaries. I start meeting with full days next week and start them on the process, but they're gonna go on a half pace.
I didn't realize it was, I thought it was more of a school commitment. I don't think it's just-
Well,
Well-
it's 2 schools, and because if you think about sizes, like in Stockton, it's their whole district, because it's this
One school,
right?
all together.
Or you go to KCK, well, it really is just 2 schools. You know, it's not, I guess they didn't allege that, it's 2 schools. McPherson, you got 1 elementary going for it and 3 not. You
Might
can't
as
do
well
that.
just go over.
You just can't do that.
Yeah,
So-
so it creates really an inequity issue.
Yes,
Inside
so
your
we want to honor the 2 schools that were chosen. So purposely kind of let them go for a little while before we brought it to the other ones, right? So they always knew that somehow they were going to be in it. And in fact, our MEA kind of demanded it, which is interesting. We had already planned that, but they demanded it, so cool. So it's not
It came from them.
all good. So, but Jay and Tammy come out, and it's basically every other week. And so Jay is the secondary guy, so he meets with our middle school team, and Tammy comes and meets with our elementary team, and it truly is full day. So when they come out, we've got them with a full day. Subs is a problem, because when we do those days, that's like 22 subs.
Oh, wow. It's expensive.
So, but we just decided it's the most important work, so we do what we do. But it's not just those days. So like yesterday, we're now at a research phase, and so we've got 3 different research teams in our building going on. And one day was the team doing service piece, one day was the team doing explore, and one was experience. So we just spent the whole day researching and talking through research and we pulled other teachers in now. So now there's a team that meets with Jay and Tammy, and we meet frequently. It is sometimes it's several times a week. It's not just every 2 weeks. And then we've got to do the communication piece. That's huge. So how do you meet with the other teachers to make sure they know what's going on? How do you make sure the board knows what's going on? How do you make sure the other 3 buildings know what's going on? How do you make sure the board knows what's going on? Yes, I mean, so it's huge. That's really time.
So do you think, I'm kind of gonna beg here, like, as we're talking about planning, I know, are you the only one in here that is?
Mercury, any other ones?
But would you be willing, and I mean, I know we're not all in it at the level in which you are, but it sounds like they probably have a process or some kind of that planning of the steps you're going through. Would you be willing to maybe, as we talk about that, share out and just kind of use your district as an example of what you're doing? And obviously, as we go through planning, we may have other things that we're doing, but at least having that, maybe that structure that they're kind of.
It is more the process stuff.
The process.
And the process, and the things that we're learning, so the 3 other buildings I'm going through, I've learned things that they brought in. I was like, no, let's not do it that way because that just caused this issue. If you do this way, they'll do that. And so there's a learning experience too. Okay. So these guys are really guinea pigs, and I think there's some.
You know, Angie, what I'm hearing, and Jim and I both, is that's the work that needs to be done. That's the important work.
Right.
But here's the deal. There's only so much time of the day, and there's only so much you and Shiloh and Gordon, right? And I know you have also teams underneath you, your research teams, all that stuff that's going on, but it still takes a lot of organization, a lot of time to get that done. And even though we know, what about the daily management of the buildings? I mean, I'm just thinking, how are you guys keeping all that juggling? I mean, from, because I'm thinking all the reports that we have to do that's all different than that.
Like Fred
that's the work that needs to be done.
Yeah,
That's the important stuff. But how do you survive with the rest of it? Do you see?
The one schools in there that I just think, how are they?
How are you
Once
guys
Well, it
surviving?
really is the leader of the whole process is the principal. So it's
Okay.
the building principal, it's not the district level. So somebody asked that question.
We are there.
Oh,
We're there.
But they're choices.
But they're busy, I mean, all the report is
So they come in and say right out of the bat, expect this to take 20% of your time.
I'm thinking more from what I'm hearing from you.
But slowing down, going at a slower pace would not be that.
Okay.
So,
Right, which we would be doing.
right, so the other 3 buildings, we're gonna meet monthly. It just feels so much different. But it'll be interesting to compare because when you're going at a fast pace, you know you're gonna get it done and you don't lose momentum and you go. And nothing gets in the way of that. So it'll be interesting how the other 3 going slower will feel. But we're looking at it, so Jim and I are looking at where it's 2 years down the road, right? And that's what we're looking at with those buildings.
One more question. You mentioned the playbook and you said that's not really your thing, but is that like a secret document or is that something that we can look at?
Is there a link on their website?
I'm on
Can
the
somebody
Refine
put the link
page.
in there, please?
Yeah, it's,
I have
We
it.
haven't-
I have a
I'll
place
I'll
to
just
put the
share
link.
it. I haven't downloaded, I'll just share.
Can you link it in there?
documents. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'll also mention, I had to do Kansas Star last year, no, a couple years ago in my previous district. They were doing it for some of the pre-MTSS and everything, but it's the same exact thing for KISA. And it really guides you through every step. It starts with a survey of your admin team or whatever, where you answer questions and it pops up your lowest, it calculates and pops up your lowest. And then you choose, and once you click, it tells you step by step what the next process is. And then it also gives you tons of best practice resources and research right there at your fingertips.
Wise ways.
And I had never done it. I had just been trained the technical part of it, how to log in basically. And that we went to 4 meetings to chunk it, you know. Now, when we come back, you need to have this much done. And then when you come back, have this much done. And, you know, once I knew the technical part, our principal didn't have time to be the manager. So I was the manager of the account, but I didn't mind it. And I didn't have a classroom. So, you know, but it did guide us. It wasn't like I knew what I was doing. It just guided us. And then it prints out your notes, so your agenda and everything. I mean, it really, guide you through your next steps. It's pretty amazing, really.
So for principals that are starting from scratch with school improvement plans, if they use the tool, it'll.
We're starting from scratch.
Yeah.
I will tell you something because we're struggling. Okay, you go into Kansas Star and it's very, and I took a couple principals. I think I went to 3 trainings and took different people. It can be a little overwhelming, but the Wise Ways are awesome. So when I called Southwest Plains and I said, okay, we've got to decide if we're going to use Kansas Star or if we're going to use, because we're a Google district, we're going to use Google Drive and put all of our stuff and our everything. But the problem, and this is what I said, well, then we don't have access to the Wise Ways.
Right.
And we have to go out and figure out what are specific models or strategies or things that we should be implementing or possibly using if we're focusing on certain things. Southwest Plains downloaded all the Wise Ways.
I did too.
So if you wanted to do it out, and I'm just saying, if your district decides they're totally against using Kansas Star because it's just too much and overwhelming, then when she's training in the afternoon on Google, that's part of their presentation and how they're training is they're putting those Wise Ways into the Google Drive and using that. Whether that's good or not, I don't know, but I'm just sharing that with you, that those can be downloaded and taken out, because my biggest thing with school improvement plans is, okay, we can identify all these problems, but then we try to make it a technical problem instead of a adaptive problem, and we just try to solve it and go, oh, the first thing we find, let's implement this strategy or whatever. As where those Wise Ways are, they're
and
right
they're
there.
organized. If your leadership is your topic,
yeah,
then
they're
only the
focused.
Wise Ways for leadership pop
Will pop up.
And then you can go through them and say, okay, which one do you guys want to use with the stuff?
And there's professional learning embedded into it. The research is in there, the strategies or the models that they've researched.
And I did the full thing, but others did not do much.
Yeah, we'll just pull them out.
In Google
Drive.
So you've already done the
You might want to use the Wise Ways.
recreate everything.
Yeah,
But
that's kind of how I see it, but I do think that the Wise Ways might serve as valuable resources. So if they put those in there for us,
Download them.
and we pick something, and then they have them in folders, say leadership, here's the Wise Ways, then why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
You can also look at it by R.
You could do it yourself.
It's crosswalk to all of it.
All the R's.
That's what we heard. I've not seen it yet. The
I think my people will freak out at
The
Kansas.
Wise Ways, I tried to download them all
Yes.
before I left the district because I thought they were so amazing.
It's like gold.
But you wouldn't even, I
So
mean,
give leadership.
that service center is getting a lot of money for something you guys could just do. If you're gonna use Google Docs, you know?
Oh,
And
we wouldn't need
you
that.
could download the Wise Ways
Does
from
anybody
someone
have the
else.
Wise Ways download?
I don't.
You can if you're in the system, and it's free.
Which
So
one?
we are,
Which
when
system?
it's
The Kansas Star system?
Kansas Star system, but it's free and you can get a login, and then you can decide not to use it. I mean.
Is everybody here using Kansas Star?
We are.
We are. But we're starting at ground zero,
The
so.
part I love the most is the ability to give coaching comments from my
I would
desk.
like to, we're just, we're looking at going school-wide title and it'll be required.
And that's why we're using.
School-wide title would be required.
Eventually they'll have to use.
New school-wide titles are required.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to fill out all of the paperwork, as much of the paperwork if you do, if you say yes, we're using it, because then they can get in and see it.
And we were not a title school, but we were required to use the system.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, I made a folder called redesign and I
Yes.
put that.
So you can dump some stuff in there. The next topic, and we put this on here simply because it was another thing that got quite a bit of votes from the survey, was focusing on the Kansas vision and obviously talking about that regularly, not necessarily every time. So we did, and most of you have probably seen the email from Randy and the modules and the discussion booklet that goes along with them. What we thought we might do, and if we don't want to do this, we can skip it, was is there 6 modules? There's an intro, and then there's one like on social emotional, IPS. They're very short, and then there's several discussion questions. The intro doesn't have one, so Tamara created one, and that's what we were going to watch today. But it's kind of going through those slowly during the year and just looking at them. But then what might be helpful is if you're going back Are you doing this with your administrative team? Are you having conversations with them about this? Or is this something that you just, that maybe your suit sent out and said, hey, principals, watch this, and they won't? At least mine, maybe two would. But what are your thoughts there? Is this a direction maybe as we're looking at the Kansas Vision, maybe watching the quick videos, just having a quick discussion using the guide, and then that might help you or prompt you to think about what to do when you go back to your districts?
Kind of model how we would facilitate it.
Is that okay?
But to be like, we're the principals in this one, and then the next time we would be the facilitator.
And the nice thing about this, and you don't have to use the questions, the intro doesn't have any questions, but there is a discussion guide, and the questions are pretty heavy. I mean, they make you think a little bit. They're not like a low-level question with one response, like a yes or no. There's like 3 questions within a question, really getting you to think about some things as we move forward with the vision. So are we okay with watching the intro? Yeah. Okay, let's do it. Feel free to grab some coffee or a snack or whatever while I. Ugh, I hate Apple. Ugh.
How do you really feel?
Seriously, I feel like I'm in special. Okay, why is it? There we go.
We love you.
Deep breaths, deep breaths, deep breaths, sorry. Okay. Just not used to it. It's not that it's good, not good, I just am not accustomed to it. I like an iPhone, I don't have one of those either.
It's like that was this guy.
All right. Really? I'm gonna have to go get the tech guy. Oh.
Yes.
Okay, so what I would like you to do, there's 3 questions that Tamara came up with in the agenda. And they are bulleted here. Think of the first one as number 1, the second one number 2, and number 3. Take a few minutes, and you have your sticky notes, and do one sticky note with a 1 with the 2, and 1 with the 3. And jot down some notes or answer that question for yourself. Then we're going to do an activity where we just kind of pair up with other people and share. And then I only made the chart so we could put our sticky notes on there, and then I can take that and take a picture of it so we have it for later, or I can type it out. So take a few minutes to answer. Oh, hold on. Oh gosh. Okay, maybe it's over. There they are, right here. The 3 questions. You have them in your agenda, obviously, as well. So you don't have to write the question on your sticky note. Just put a 1, 2, or 3 because I have the headers over here. And when you're having a conversation, you don't necessarily need to have those. So answer those 3 questions. Take a few minutes. Sorry. Okay, about 30 more seconds.
It's like, give one, take one. Is that what?
Yeah, biblical.
Okay, somebody can help me because I can't remember. Is it, there's a Kagan structure, I think it's called give one, take one, where you're gonna have your 3 questions or your answers. And tell me if I'm wrong, because I just threw this together like last minute, and I'm not sure if I'm right. And you're gonna get up, you're gonna find a partner, you're gonna go up to them, you're gonna share, one person will start, share your answers 1, 2, and 3, then the other person does so in return, and then you trade one that you want to trade out. Then you're going to go to another person, and you're going to repeat, and you're going to trade one, and then you'll do it a 3rd time.
You trade 1 for a 1 or a 2 for a 2.
Yeah, I can't. I was trying to remember, like give one, take one, or I can't. I was trying to remember the name. Give one,
Get one, get one.
give one, get one. Okay, that's what we're going to call it. Holly's effort to force collaboration, because if I had it my way, we would just go around the room and share. But we're gonna get up.
It doesn't have to be a question 2 for a question 2.
No. It could just be any. And then remember, these will be placed up here when we're done. I'll have you come up. You'll place them here. I'll take a picture of it, put it on our photo circle so we have pictures of it. Okay? So everybody up. Find a partner to start off with.
We need music.
Really?
Music,
Okay, find a partner in the next 5 seconds. Hold on. I was trying to, I was thinking more data. Participation report, every person's data. Which one you want? Okay, we're gonna switch in 5 seconds if you have this already. All right. Switch. Find a person in 5 seconds. If you haven't already.
Anyway, we got 2
So the first one, find the answer teachers and let us know. My Anyway, all right, 3, I have doing poverty simulations and training and all of this.
Ready to switch over there?
Yeah, right, teachers, all right,
I'm switching.
Providing summer meals. And then okay, switch last time.
So they try to get that nice map, give them that location where so which one's that? Are we done? Yes, number 3.
Yeah, that's what we're All right, when you're done, go ahead and put your sticky notes up on each of the 3 charts so we can take a picture of it. Maybe we're the only ones doing the right thing.
You might be.
I don't know.
That's nationally recognized instead. We got to write it.
Way to try something new, Holly. Good job.
Took me outside my
I don't
comfort
really
zone.
think I
Not
did it
that I'm
right,
sure
but
about.
who cares?
It's all good. There's no judgment here. We're all fine.
You're right.
Nope, it worked.
I needed to try, and I needed to give you amount of time, and I needed you to see.
I know, me too, I know.
It didn't happen.
We could have said.
I would have been doing that with students, it would not have worked, so.
Did we scare all the middle way last time? What is that about?
And Shiloh had redesigned the high school.
Okay.
Okay. Any parting thoughts on that particular video and discussions that you had with your 3 partners? Anything come to mind that just kind of was like, oh, that was kind of interesting, or something that popped out, or something that confused you, or if not, we don't have to spend a lot more time on it. So in thinking about how you might take this back and utilize it with your administrators, whether, I know everybody's role is a little bit different. Example, in our district, we are doing kind of what we just did here. We're doing one at a time we have bi-monthly administrators meetings. One is Dr. Black's, it's more business oriented, and the other one is mine. But we are putting that on each of our agendas until we get through those, and then just having discussion, hopefully using the questions that were provided by the state that are in that discussion manual. Any other thoughts on maybe how you would go about doing that, maybe more at a building level or with a different type of stakeholder?
I was planning to use them with the 3 other schools bringing on with redesign. To actually do this with them, to start their conversations, to get them all on the same page and with the same languages before we start on.
District site council. That's where
Yeah, site council.
I was
Building
trying to think
business.
of mapping a plan for my site councils. Leadership team started working on that.
Okay, how about, let me see, if you can go in here, I'm trying to think, maybe, and then if you want to type in here, you can, kind of what you're thinking about. You put site councils, or like you said, with in your redesign efforts, you sharing it with your buildings and so forth. Okay, the next item on the agenda, and actually this didn't get a lot of votes in the survey, but we do touch on state assessments and on occasion, just to make sure that people are up to speed and they're not forgetting something. Typically in the spring, it's a little bit more like, what am I supposed to do? Make sure you're not forgetting to do something. The state, I feel like, is doing a much better job of preparing us and making sure that we know what we're doing. But I did want to put this on the agenda and talk just a little bit, if you did go to at least the first day of the conference, if not the last 2 as well. And you don't have to share, we'll just kind of go around the table. But I had a couple of ahas when I was sitting there at the test coordinators conference about a couple of things that I hadn't thought about. So highlights from the test coordinators conference, share 2 things or even one thing that you learned that you were not aware of. And I will start. The first thing, not that I wasn't really aware of it, but I hadn't thought about it, is later on when I go to upload the test collection with social studies for 6, 8, and 11, you have to put in what's it called? A proctor. So you have to have their ID, and it makes total sense, but I just, had not thought about that until I was sitting there and was like, oh, yeah, you'd have to do that so then they can score later on. So that's my one thing that I learned, at least from the test coordinators piece of the conference. So we'll just go around the table. If you have nothing to share, it's fine. Just say pass.
Just how about if you do?
I didn't go to the test administrator, but I went to the kite one at Lee Jones. and
That's
they
what
had
I would
here,
ask that
and
question.
that to me was that was really, well, it was very beneficial, but, I've always been against the interims in some ways, maybe it's because it's kind of a philosophy in our building, but the minis, I had an aha moment that the minis we should probably be using.
I have to say. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll start to be a little more open.
Open to, and that will maybe the interims, but.
So that's a question. Did anybody go to the test coordinators and go to the kite? Because I wasn't able to go to the kite session, that was the one, back for a redesign conversation.
I went to kite when they had it here.
So, so if I didn't do that, I don't feel like I probably got out of the test coordinator session what I needed to. And that's a question. I'm wondering.
I only went to the kite and I didn't go to test coordinators because I just couldn't be gone 3 days in a row.
I mean, I agree, the minis, I'm scared, my philosophy is that
I'm more
I'm
open to
scared, I'm more open to it, I'm just not sure I'm ready to dive in yet.
I haven't dived in yet.
Okay,
I'm
more open.
I think it's me all the time. I'm glad to hear other people say that.
I just introduced it to my principals yesterday and said, no pressure. Because I don't want it to be like we're studying for the test again, because that's exactly what they're
Which
gonna take.
I think, and he even shared that, when did all the access go up to those before state assessments, so teachers were still using this as test prep, you know?
Yes, right.
See, that's, yeah, I know, that's why I'm not heard of it. And I
Started
thought maybe a
thinking about it.
mini, maybe I could do. It's like, I could dip my toe in the water. I don't know.
And what did you learn in the kite one that I need to know? Are those still available? Because I mean, Aztec already had theirs.
They have, and I have it in this document, so if you open this document that's in there, because I went out and trained my staff on the different types of assessments that are available, and I do not by any means make the interims mandatory, but I feel like it is my job to educate them about, here's manual, here's where you go, this is available, this is the mini test, this is the predictive test, here's the difference. So I did that all this last week, a real quick 20-minute session, so they have access to that. But I will tell you, there is, and you can see it right here, there's an interim assessment user guide that spells it out. So if they want to implement the mini test or the predictives, in that guide, it gives them step-by-step screenshots and directions of how to do that in Kite. So,
But we
other
still
than
have to
that-
upload a task.
yes, you
Yeah,
still,
that's
and that's in my
I
directions too.
Do you guys have?
Our teachers.
I know,
Right.
I've got to go in.
So,
I want to go in.
the one thing, and I did this in this document, and I don't know, it's just the way my head thinks and the way I put it together, so it made sense when I presented it. But I went through and just talked to them about the two types of interims, and then just some facts about each. But the thing that I also put down in here was that a task, on the back side, a task record has been uploaded. So they're aware that their students have been uploaded, but they still need to go in and look at their rosters in Kite to make sure that everybody's showing up. And then if you have any new kids that move in, a new task record has to be sent up for ELA and math for those students, or they're not going to appear on the roster. So my teachers are just aware of that. They were aware of it last year. They know to email a certain person to do that. And then if they want to administer those, then the kids that they're wanting to give them to are or appear on the roster.
Thanks for putting this together.
So you shared that.
Holly, did you share the topics for the writing for social studies?
Yeah.
Is that in there?
It's all yours.
Holly, we're all buying you lunch today.
I'm sick.
No, but I did send it out in an email to my social studies teachers a long time ago. And I only invited my ELA and math people to this because they're the only ones that it's dealing with right now. So I didn't put any really social studies information in there, but I will say, I'll just go through this real quick. If you go out and you train and you talk about the types of assessments that are available, you have the interims, you just let them know. If you decide to give these, the directions are in that guide, very detailed. I read it, and I'm the slow processor learner, and I figured it out, so I know they can. And I just talked about the purpose, what they're designed for, what they're not designed for, what's available. And it's kind of what was presented at the conference. I just started typing stuff in there that they shared. Talks about where the teachers created, they have to go into the Kite portal, that the students log into the Kite client. Believe this or not, the teachers still in their minds get the Kite client and the Kite portal mixed up.
Yeah.
So you have to tell them, the Kite portal is your site. This is where you go in. This is where you create the assessments. This is where you find your rosters, where you look at your results. The kids' side is the Kite client, and you have either the little icon or, depending on the type of device, they have that on their device where they go in and log in. So the information about the first interim is there. Then the main thing that I talked about really, though, was the second type, which was the predictive interim. And I went out last week and this week because the window for the fall ends on the 27th. So if they're truly wanting to go ahead and give the fall predictive interim, and to even have a clue that they existed, that's why I've already gone out. Because if you don't, then, and there's nothing wrong with, they can start it in the winter, it's not a big deal. But the windows are there. Then there is a link here to the predictive interims and the score reports, and then an interpretive guide. So when they open up the reports, that interim guide explains what everything, here's a 1, this is what this part of the report means, just like they did for the summatives. Then the second part, which I spend this much time on because the state hasn't done really anything with it, are those formatives. When you go to the kansasassessments.org site, there are these formatives that they have available. This is totally outside of Kite, where teachers can just go in and get supplementary resources on different topics. And I just scroll down, and then this is what I say. Yeah, there's not very much here now. They say they're going to build it. I think they're just have other things on their plate. So this is kind of at a standstill. But there are really great resources and lessons here that target certain standards, and the hope is in the future that there's more. And then I just move on. I don't spend very much time on that at all. But I do include it because that's one of the types of assessments that they provide. Then I just gave them some basic information on the summatives. No, these are links to the pages where it'll take you straight there. Talks about what the summatives are. And then I just gave some basic information, and they know I come back out in the spring and talk to them more about it. But the one thing I think is important, and if you're not aware of this, and they did talk about this, and it's kind of hidden and not easy to find, but if you're wanting your PLCs to have some conversations about the content, etc., that's on the state assessments, when you click on the link, if you look over, you can click on whatever subject, and then over here, I kind of go through and I talk to them about each of these documents. Like this first one kind of tells what percentage of types of questions are going to be on the assessment, what level of question, etc. It's pretty brief. Then there's an item specifications document. And then I feel like the most valuable one is this one where they go in and when you're looking, and this is just grade 3, but you have a target, and then if you're thinking about instruction here, teachers need to be having a conversation about what? If you were to look at this, what would the conversation be about during a PLC? Our goal is to get kids where? So the goal is to teach that skill at the level in which this description says in the 4. So they need to be talking about, here's what I'm teaching, and then whether they do it independently or as a group, a teacher needs to kind of sit and think, where am I currently, what level am I teaching this skill? And I told them, I said, there's probably some that you're teaching at a level 2 or a 3 or maybe even a 1. Well, it's your responsibility, in all fairness to the kids, you need to expose them to level 4 types of activities, or, increase the rigor and think about how you need to change your instruction to get there, because you're cheating the kids if you're not at least trying to teach at level 4. Because if you're teaching at level 2, then your kids are going to score at a level 1 or 2 because they don't know it at the level in which.
I just had this conversation with the science teacher who gives study guides and notes and has kids studying rote memorization. But then she decides her tests will be all application. And she hasn't taught that way. But she's so proud that she moved her test. And I'm like, and they all failed.
I go,
Right.
okay, let's look at these, let's look at this.
Yeah, so like the level of questioning and and even when they create their assessments, it kind of has to match.
It has to match.
So to me, this is the most valuable resource in here when they're,
I
even if you're sitting with a person on, like we have 2 teachers per grade in each school. So whether they meet during department time or during your building PLC time and they take a look at this, to me, this, or even a district 4th grade PLC, they're looking at that and they know, I've got to be getting it to level 4. And I just say, or you're cheating the kids. And it's not ill-intended. They're not teaching it at level 2 because they know they're supposed to be teaching it at 4 and it's just easier for them. Many times it's just lack of awareness. They think they're teaching it at the level in which they should, or say journeys or envision, it's taught at a level 2. So they're gonna have to supplement or bump it up with their types of questions that they're asking or additional assessments or things that they're using if they truly wanna get to level 4. So whenever I did go out to train, especially at the elementary level, this was really they were like, ooh, we need to be doing that. You know, looking at that and having those conversations. And fortunately, they all have PLCs and department time built into their schedule, so they can take that back. And most of these documents have explanations and how to use or read this document's included, so I don't have to go out there and, you know, walk them through it. It's pretty cut and dry. And then at the bottom of the document, I just had a reminder. Here's the the portal login. I show them what it looks like so they can refresh their memory, their usernames, their email. If you forgot your password, I don't have it, so don't email me, reset it. If you're brand new, then I just automatically have them do the forgot password because I've set them up an account. So that's the training, and that's how I approach it. I don't make them do any of the mini tests or any of the predictives, but I just tell them these are great tools that you can use to drive instruction, to change instruction, use them in a variety of ways. So that's kind of my take on how I do it. So any other, do any of the rest of you, have you done, what do you do with your staff, if anything?
The content emphasis in our team time
Uh-huh.
on Tuesday has been awesome. They have loved
Here,
it.
I'm gonna I'll pull that up.
There's such good information there.
So it describes it, which is good because they read through that on their own. And then it's really kind of a 1-page.
Yeah.
And this is 3, 8, and 10.
Then the other document you have at the levels.
Uh-huh. You take it.
Great conversation about what denotes level 1 to level 4 and what you need to be doing in your teaching. And that's where that whole science thing came up.
Right.
You know.
The first document, one thing they may have to reference back to, the targets are defined in this document, and then in the second one, it just has like target 1 and 8. So if you don't reference this document, the teachers may not know what the targets are. So as the curriculum leader, you may just want to go ahead and download and print them all off and then kind of look at them to determine which ones do they maybe need to use and correspond to each other when they're reviewing them during a PLC, because you definitely need to know what the targets are, because in the other document it's just going to have, let me see if I can find it. It's not that one, it's the second one, I think. It's the second one. So if you go in here in the item specs, which again, it explains it, what it is, how to use this document. Then over here to the left, see where it has the I'm sorry, hold on. Oh, and it has a glossary. But down, I thought it was. Maybe it's the last one. But there is a document where it just has the target and the number. It doesn't explain what the target is. So you need to use a couple of the documents together. So it's just good conversation. Those resources are there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And even if they use one of them, that's great. They know more than they did before. So, anything else on assessments or kind of what we should be doing right now?
Well, the one thing they did really stress this time around was having the social studies teachers score the social studies test, not the language arts.
Right.
Because they want to focus on content and ideas versus all the grammar. So that was the ELA teachers kind of were like, oh, and social studies raised their concern a little bit. I was relieved to hear that.
And the change when we went to the social studies breakout session about what's coming in the next years and how that test is going to change was very enlightening. I thought, did you guys go to that? How it's not.
Yeah.
They're basically doing away with the social studies assessment. They're going to have this will be the last time for the social studies assessment, and that they're going to have standards. It feels a little bit like it's not real clear yet, but my take was on it, they're going to have these standards and these benchmarks, and then when the teacher has felt like the students have mastered it, they say they've mastered it.
Kind of like a local
Like a
assessment.
standardized base credit card from the state.
Yeah, and the teacher just says that they check it off.
Well, they're encouraging like more local writing assessment versus state.
I didn't get to go to that, so I didn't.
So
where was that? Was that in KSD?
Yeah, Dawn did it.
It was
That was the first.
It was the head social studies guy.
Yeah,
from
but
KSD.
John did it, and it was
good.
It'll be interesting. It hasn't obviously passed the State Board of Education. I'm always wondering about the accountability issue of it. Like, will there people that go, wait a second? Because then, of course, I was sort of like, well, if it's good for social studies, why isn't it good for math and ELA? Why are we right?
Because PowerPoint has everything you need, so just download the PowerPoint.
Because you can't even.
Right, the ESSA requires
you
math
can't
and
do
ELA,
PowerPoint
but
with it?
I just found it interesting. Yeah,
So that-
if you want to look at his PowerPoint, he didn't spend so much time on that on the PowerPoint. Of what's
Did he
going
actually
on.
put it into Sketch though? Sometimes.
Yes,
he did.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to pull that.
Yeah, that one is.
Okay, because I know he didn't, I went to one of the other sessions and he just said,
And I-
email me and put it on Sketch.
And I don't know if you'd want to share the future until after they're done with this year's, because this year's is the same. You don't want to get too much information and.
Yeah.
My teachers that went to the one he did at EdSAP, they did a social studies, their plan did it, and so
Yes.
they came back, and so they told me about it, because he had shared it there, and so I was kind of interested to hear more about it. And then, sort of they extended the grading window for social studies so that they could give a little bit more time to grade.
It's not gonna be at the end of
No.
May.
the
It's
Tuesday.
in May, and so you won't get those.
Outside the window.
We'll get results later.
And so the results won't come back with the math and ALA, will come back later.
But that Don said that he looked for it to be pushed back possibly even further. He said, why do we even need to worry about it in May when we won't see the results until the fall anyway? Let's give them till June. So he acted like he was gonna push to get that.
Yeah, I mean, the idea was.
Teachers won't be there.
Exactly, right, yeah, but I mean, you could possibly be there beyond May 11th though, you know, at least maybe until the end of your school year.
So I think that was the most beneficial thing I got out of it.
Anybody else from the test coordinator conference, anything that you picked up that you're kind of like, oh, aha?
This was a little thing, but something in the conference reminded me to go in and look at old PNPs. I guess they were showing us the new, under reports, they have that new download that you can ask for, and you can see all your kids who have PNPs, custom PNPs. Well, the PNPs are coming with them from previous districts, so we just pulled a list by building, and we found some kids that have had PNPs since like years ago from.
Because they weren't
previous
taken
district.
out.
They weren't taken out.
You
So
just didn't know
our-
they had them.
So our current teams or building test coordinators didn't even know they were there, so we're getting all that cleaned up.
Get old.
And where do you get that report?
If you go into the educator portal to reports, it's one of those downloads you can request. Now it's a PNP list. We just pulled it by building, and it also shows you the last time somebody modified it. That's what
Oh,
it
yeah,
is.
that's good.
So there were some PNPs that the last time they'd been modified was like 13, 14, or 14, 15 school year. And then we started looking, and then we saw teacher names we didn't recognize, and we realized these were PNPs that had come from other districts.
Yeah.
And it is, I just pulled our sped teachers together, and then we went through the PNPs last year together, because I was new and we're from the co-op, which I'm not familiar with how that works. And so we got together and they updated and helped delete, because I had no idea. And they know those kids, they know their IEPs, and they had to provide the IEP page and all of that. So I put it back on them a little bit, and then they provided it for me. So.
Yeah, I'm glad that report that would be helpful, because you can.
And what's it called?
Possible
Accessibility profile.
Accessibility
Is the first one there.
That's good to know.
Is this what we broke on?
Yeah.
Good stuff, Karen.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Anything else? Not necessarily assessments, but your science doc, when was that?
Yes.
And she's got it was tremendous. It was.
Oh my
really-
gosh, it's so good.
First 5 minutes, I'm already sharing it with all the department chairs. And Karen.
Did you go to it?
Oh,
Which
and
one was it?
Then on
It's right here.
the science assessment, so there's information in there on that, but she had a lot of other great resources
Sorry.
and links to different things. And on the sked, she's also got her PowerPoint up now too.
Oh, she does?
She does. And then I thought I was in that chronic absenteeism one too. And the one thing that I remember him saying that I took back and asked about was, he said, make sure that your kids that are out, you've got marked for school activities. It doesn't count as an absence in your Skyward or Power School. And so I went back and asked, and he said, oh yeah, it counts as an absence. And so, so that's something we'll work on getting corrected if it's not an absence, if it's, counts towards the attendance rate.
I am kind of curious on that, like, because I would like to know how that, attendance really does affect student achievement. If they're gone for an activity, they're still gone, like, I'm fascinated by how that data would,
You said attendance does not affect?
Attendance affects, it's like one of the greatest effects on student
Right.
achievement, right? So we don't count when they're gone for activities, but the reality is, I know when I was teaching calculus, my kids were involved in everything. Those kids were involved in everything, and there'd be days where the kid would miss 4 out of 5 days, and for activities. They were never absent, but they were not in class. So I always think, I'd like to see some. So I'm running some data on my ACT and my state right now on correlating that with absences and correlating it with absences and activities mixed in, and see if there's any correlation.
I correlated absences with at-risk kids, and it didn't correlate. It didn't. Our at-risk kids, the ones that were at risk, and our non-at-risk kids that missed. I thought they would correlate. I thought you would see the kids.
You would see that the at-risk kids are missing more.
Yes, I thought that would affect them and make them, and it didn't show that. But we saw it we looked at it as a PLC, but we did monitor, and that was one of our interventions, was just monitoring attendance, and we put in a plan in place in middle school, and the 6th grade team followed through, and you could see through the year we tracked it, and their attendance went down, their attendance present went up, and the other 2 grades and no change with them, but the 6th grade team followed through the whole year, and it was unbelievable, the change with attendance, just tracking attendance.
Yeah, it'd be interesting because we have definitely hot spots in grade levels with attendance, definitely hot spots. Like 18%, 7, 6, 5%, 13%,
Well, we found our counselor was pulling out of the same hour, and we had to change that, because throughout the whole year, he pulled the kids out of the same hour, and they were missing that same class over and over. So just seeing that data and talking about
But
it.
that wouldn't count as an absence.
No, but it hurt our kids.
Right.
So
that's what I'm saying.
that was a little problem we found when we were looking at data to help improve too. So it was kind of neat to have the small teams, grade levels looking at it with us and discussing. So
I think one thing that Brandon pointed out, and did anybody else go to that besides the 2 of us, was the fact that, you look at procedure and protocol, like what are you doing in your district that's inconsistent? So looking at it, making sure that you're doing things the same across the board and having those conversations, and then having just general communication that you put out to everyone about attendance. And the one thing that stuck in my mind was sending out something in a newsletter or whatever that, if possible, make your appointments for doctors on in-service days or on holidays, not on a school day. So that would be a message you would send out to everyone, because you don't want any kid to be gone. But then identifying those kids, which in AMOS, if you go in there is a chronic absence report or page where you can go in and you can identify by the district and by the school how many chronically absent kids you have at each grade level. So as I went in, pulled those PDFs up for the principals. I have this as well, and we're going to be discussing it. But like in our Title I school, which you would, this is common sense, that our poorest school, which is 78%, I think, free and reduced, has the most chronic absence. Well, that's what research says. You know, your poverty-stricken families are the ones that struggle to get their kids to school. I mean, that's kind of common sense. But when they're looking at that, and that was data for last year, so kids that missed 10% of the school year, which let's say if you did 180 days, they're missing 18 days of school, they're on that list. So what they'll do now is they'll go back, we'll have the conversation and say, okay, this is from last year. You have 4 kids in kindergarten, 8 in first grade, 20 in 9th grade, whatever. But now they have to look at it at maybe at the end of each quarter, pulling up a report in PowerSchool to identify for the first quarter, and I'm making up the days, but let's say it's 60 days or 50 days. So if they've missed 5 days, they are right now considered a chronically absent student in your building. So then talking about as an administrative team or even in your buildings, well, how are we going to address this? How are we going to work with those 5 families or those 5 kids, whatever it might be in our grade level, to get them to school? I mean, and I think that's where we have to stop and really think about what to do. And different families have different situations, you know, whether it's transportation or somebody's on drugs or who knows, you know, what can you do to support them? Don't make it a detrimental thing or punitive, but what can you do to support that family to get that kid to school? So it was good. There is some, in that PowerPoint, I went to this place right here, and this was in my opinion, was the best resource that had, let's see if it'll open. Maybe this isn't it. Maybe
that
it was
United Way stuff?
No, maybe that's not it. Hold on.
Wichita United Way brought a whole group in to do attendance matters stuff several years ago.
Can't remember which. One of these 4 had a whole bunch of resources over on the left. It's not that one. Obviously, I don't remember which one it was. Maybe it's this one. Maybe it's this one. No.
Well, I can share some of the stuff that we used a couple of years ago in Wichita that our school chose to monitor, and we even had a chart. So I knew what was 10% each week. At the end on Friday is when I pulled the report weekly. But when we had to present to our OBT, we had the bar graph from each month, and it showed how much our attendance improved. But I was just looking at that this last week, so I've got some stuff. I can delete the names, but let you see that too.
You know,
they just created a chart, so it's easy to figure your 10% weekly.
We used an army of Mr. Potato Heads. It can really be that simple. Like one building had like a whole army of Mr. Potato Heads, and every classroom gets one, and when they're all there, they get a little potato head part. I thought that was kind of funny because it was like an army of Mr. Potato Heads going out to engage those kids and coming to school. But it was a fun way because I got an eye and lips.
We just targeted the kids that were consistently tardy or consistently absent, and it was interesting to find out why. It really was. So
attendance
Yep.
works.
So if you go to attendance works, sorry, I had to find it in a link where I put it in my administration. If you go to the homepage and then click on research, and it's pretty vast, but at least there's a document here, but then it kind of breaks it down and there's different articles and information under each of these areas that, you know, maybe you could go in and look at some of those or read them. And it might give you strategies or ideas or things that other schools or districts have done. It's pretty vast. So I was reading it last night and I'm like, ugh, this is a lot. So it's not something you could just go and tell somebody, go read all these, because there's like 10 articles at least under each category. But it's got good stuff. Actually, all 4 of those links that he gave in the PowerPoint are places where you could go if you're starting to have conversations about this and coming up with things that you need to be doing to fight chronic absence in your schools. So
sometimes I think part of it is just communicating to parents how important it is, like communicating the research. Like, did you know that if you miss 10%, your chances of graduating high school just went down by 30%? Or like it's just communicating.
Letter article.
Yeah, I think you just you just hit them. Like being in school is important.
Everybody.
And then and then put a little stat every single time. what does this mean for you? It means scheduling your hair appointments outside of, till 3 o'clock or on Saturday.
What's interesting is the groups that need to hear that aren't gonna read it in your newsletter.
Nope.
Y'all must have to talk about it in conference.
And the other group that is, I'm sorry, I'm not
You're
sure.
right.
I just busted a kid last week accidentally, that was a very wealthy family, and getting a haircut. Really cute haircut, but I'm like, she should still be in school, shouldn't she? Right?
Yeah.
Or I take my kid out for 5 days to go to Disney, and we just earlier this summer we went to Hawaii a couple of weeks ago. Like the kids are out 10 days, they're chronically absent. Parents can afford to do that. It's not. I'm looking at the state data, it's interesting, because I had never really looked at that. Seniors and kindergartners.
Yeah. Kindergarten doesn't surprise me
Kindergarten is
at
our
all.
highest one.
Kindergarten's our highest one too.
Yeah.
Because they've totally.
Isn't that strange?
It's just weird.
The high school.
Seniors is 27.7.
United Way of Kansas is doing the whole Be There promotion. And they have tons of resources for flyers and things to give to parents and a little stuff like piece and so just Google United Way Kansas and their attendance.
I suggested to my high school folks, because you never run into those parents that their kids are never there either. So we do like a digital display at all of our basketball games. We have all these big cool screens where we put up like FFA went to the fair, here's a picture, just like silliness, or come to the potluck dinner or whatever. And so I put together just in like Pay Collage some pretty looking statistics, eye catching, that if you're 10 minutes late every day, you miss 33 hours of school. So in between, come to next week's tailgate, then you get, if you show up 10 minutes late every day, you miss 33 hours of school, which is 8 days. So, and you hit everybody there, the parent you never see anywhere else at a basketball game. So, they're, just bare bones, and I need to, gather more.
But yeah, that might be something next time to.
Yeah, I will.
share. Just give us some
You
ideas.
guys they're there anyway, might as well put that bug in.
Well, we're running late, obviously. Always good conversation, and we'll stop it here. Any final parting notes or comments before we dismiss?
We will have a KPL team next time. Because we'll have a meeting.
She has something to share.
Well, some of you had asked about the Striving Readers Grant. Which I'm gonna tell you, we know about as much as you do, maybe a smidge more. We do know that in order for you to write for yourself, you have to have 5,000 students. My guess is there's maybe 1 district, 2 districts in the room that could qualify under that. You have to be a part of a consortium. All of the service centers are looking to do a consortium. Tamara sent out a link to your superintendent 2 weeks ago asking those qualifying questions. So ESDAC is building a list for their member schools of who qualifies. So as soon as that we can jump into that writing piece, we're ready to go with that. And if you want to know if your superintendent's filled that out, I have those results on who's completed that survey. We don't have.
Mine sent mine to me.
Okay, perfect.
Mine sent mine to me too.
But don't to qualify, you have to have like 70% ESL or attendance, or poverty. I mean, there's like 3 things, and I felt like there's only one that would
That's in the
maybe
survey.
get.
Like,
And you don't have to qualify for all of them.
You just have to qualify for one of them, right?
10% ESOL. Can't remember what the free and reduced is. It 50,
49.
49,
45,
and then
49.
15%
It's not very high.
sped. Like we have 15.07% of our kids are in sped, so we qualified under that.
We did ours at Lander.
My question is, and that's why I was wanting to ask Tamara, that she's here today, but, because I did that for our superintendent with the consortium, and I think that's great that we would do it here, but what does that look like if SDAC writes it for a group of?
That's the question. There's a place for a question in there.
Yeah,
Like, what are you gonna ask
I
for?
did say something, I just, because is that gonna be something that SDAC's gonna control PD and everything? We won't have individual decisions to make that apply to our communities. I mean, because if like, let's say I got with Stafford and Haven and Partridge, and we got together and we decided we were gonna write it, we could really specify it and not fund our money through SDAC You see the,
Yeah, and I'll pass that question along.
you know, are they
to
gonna
her.
take
I'm not-
the big overhead of it, or is it something that, are we gonna be actually be able to control what we need so we can make sure it gets to our families and kids and not just.
I don't have the answer to that. I will definitely ask her that and have her get back.
I mean, it'd be great if we had this to do it with. I just didn't want it to be something that we don't get to really do it. We think it's best for our kids in the area of reading, because we're looking at tutoring, after school, summer school, those types of things that we can't do and haven't done for ever, and to be innovative.
Part of the problem, it's not a problem, but with the consortium, so let's say 6 districts decide to be part of the grant, you can't supplant. So if they talk about, let's say, well, what if one of those districts is already doing that? Well, that's supplanting for them.
Right.
You see what I mean? Like,
Well, I think you can write up,
to
from what I've been reading, you can write up what's needed for each community without doing the supplanting, but I guess my problem with the consortium, because you're gonna have to do that, everybody's been different. But I just didn't want like SDEC to say, well, we're sending all of our staff to California to get education on early childhood, to come back and offer workshops. I don't know how it works, but I know that's something that's happened in the past, and I just didn't want to.
I will ask Tamara and have her get back to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I really don't know the answer to
Anything else?
I have one thing. We're really looking for somebody for Ames Web Plus that, just like, you know, when you have the question that you just have to. Okay.
I've got a really good.
Not plus, we
Oh,
do training,
okay.
and nobody's doing the training, training
One
over.
of our home specialists is like.
That's because the training and trainer do
One's
that.
in charge. Also, Becky and.
I was an Ames Web trainer.
Becky's group taught us.
we had an Ames Web trainer.
Jay and I was training.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Robbie, but she's not Ames Web Plus.
Right, that's where I am.
Good Ames Web Plus won't do a trainer.
Right, and that's the other thing.
They just said we're not doing that. It's like,
Yeah. They want your money.
Yeah.
but they'll train you for
So have you
$60
done
an hour.
Have you done it yet, Cindy?
Yeah, we did it
I
last
like
year.
the reports with our names.
So it's our second.
How is the training?
There is not training. Like, I mean, there isn't, like, I don't even know.
No, I wouldn't say
I'm
that.
surprised people are
Really,
paying
No,
money
we
for
don't
it.
screen at all.
You were already in Ames Web.
You have to be on.
Yeah, you kind of almost,
To get.
But I've been getting some comments from elementary teachers that iStation is, you can do about everything you need to an iStation that you can with Ames Web. And I'm really starting to get some pushback. Why are we doing Ames Web?
Why are you doing both? Right.
Yeah, why are we doing
And
that?
I was hoping the state assessments interim thought that would be good enough that I could do that.
Oh, wow.
I think that's the
Like,
goal. That's
right.
what Dr.
So
Watson
just
would
have it.
like.
Anything else?
How many people are doing iStation?
We use it.
But only after Lexia.
Mostly
We
because.
stuck with Lexia because.
We did too,
because-
we stuck with Lexia.
Because there's, well,
We can't keep jumping and changing.
Yeah.
there's
And
only
keep
one more on
the time.
iStation, they could lose that, so. you know, it's like- For
Our
teachers.
our teachers use iStation after the kids exit out of Lexia, then they go to iStation.
Well, that's like, that's a thought.
Because it's free and they need, like, they use it sort of as their small group centers or, and so after they exit, mostly in fourth and fifth grade,
I was gonna
because
say you do.
our K three doesn't, they won't get to
We
it.
use it for our tier 3 and tier 2.
Okay, Holly, I know we're
Middle
behind
school.
everybody else, but didn't we somewhere last year list what math series everybody was using in our notes? Did we ever do that with this
I'm
group?
sure it's in one of the agendas.
That's what
I
I was
mean, we
thinking.
can add it.
And the reason
Add a
I'm asking is
section on
because
that.
we're getting ready to send teachers out to go out and do some observations of things. I knew it was somebody specifically, but if anybody remembers what month that was in, it would save me probably 45 minutes a day.
2 years ago.
Was it 2
One
years
thing,
ago?
I
Oh, then I would have known
years
about it.
I'll add a document back in and put district, or I'll put like map, a place where you can type in what you're using or what edition it is. I did
I
get
would
this,
love
and
that.
Teresa was there with me. I don't know if anybody was. We went to the regional math training a couple weeks ago, and she gave us these 3, like, what they were talking about is how to make sure that when you're moving forward with evaluating the process, these are 3 websites that have research on all of the different, I'll call it products, say Envision or Journeys that are out there and how they rate them and score them. So those links are there. We didn't talk about it today, but I did put them in there, and they're actually, I was familiar with the Clearinghouse one, but I didn't know about the other 2, so I'm like, oh,
The Ed Reports one, they always add too, so if you get on their email list, they'll email you when they've added a new review.
it's really good.
And that was a really handy one to use. It's easy to get.
The other thing she mentioned was too that when you're getting ready to do an adoption, when you're talking to your vendors, the first thing you need to ask them, or when you're kind of having that initial conversation, is to ask them to send you all the independent research that they have on that particular curriculum. Say if it's Envision or Journeys or Agile Minds or whatever. And that's good information and necessary to have as well. So that's kind of a good piece. But I will I'll add a little row. We can always just leave it on there, and we can keep entering information on what we're using, and maybe a comment box like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Don't adopt it, or so we can have some conversations about it every once in a while.
But I think it's something that's not putting it in there, we haven't adopted a curriculum in 10 years.
Well,
So
but as everyone's looking to adopt things, just a caution, depending on how close you're going to be to redesign. And if we're looking at personalized learning within the core
You may not
curriculum,
want to.
so you may not want to actually adopt a new curriculum.
But when you have an and then I talked to Melissa Fast about that, especially in the math, you need to make sure that you can personalize it, that has some components in there but when you haven't adopted in 10 years, you can't
wait.
You can't wait.
That's where we are.
It's okay, Jimmy Carter was still president of one of our textbooks on my first adopted
really?
social studies.
Yeah,
I was like, I was sort of joking about that, but I was like, really? That was my joke. You gotta get me social studies books. Jimmy Carter still
Especially
president.
social studies. Can I go back to your comment? So as part of the redesign, they don't want a core
Well,
standard
if we're
curriculum?
looking at personalized learning, I think some of the blended learning is gonna happen. So we may be looking at different things like what a Smoky Valley is looking at as opposed to a math curriculum.
But you would still have to have standards-based curriculum, right?
Right, but there's some other things out there you could use, like a Learn Zillion, that's standard, Common Core standard-based, but it's online for all of it. So you may not wanna go out and purchase a stepping stones where teacher-driven curriculum.
Well, when I talked to Melissa, she said, just make sure that when you're looking at the curriculums, that it has the components that if you teach 2nd grade, it'll allow you to look at 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade materials, or so you can personalize the learning, even though you might have your, what do you call it, tier 1 instruction, whatever it is. She said, make sure that as you're looking, in other words, blended learning and some of that stuff, that teachers have access to more than just their grade level. Because that's what.
Well, and stepping stones with ours, you have all the way through.
Yeah.
So when you get that, you have K through 5.
Are you guys still liking that?
She met with all our math teachers in our district this fall, and they went through the new math standards, and they are a lot different than some of those teachers, a lot more talking, discussing, analyzing. And the high school has held off for 2 years on choosing a book, which is nice, but it's really nice to have those 3 up there too, because she was going to get back to me on what her committee recommended to fit with the new standards, and I haven't. She's so busy. So that will be helpful.
Remember to, at least for math, and they brought this up at the training, and I used it when I adopted. I don't know if Teresa did or not. I just remember having conversation as that screener tool that they have when you're going through and truly evaluating, and it's, I'll call it cumbersome, but it's necessary.
Who's they screener to? The KSD screener to?
Yes,
Okay.
like to whether it's standard based or not, but that if you don't have an evaluation tool, you need to have something.
Yeah.
And that's the one they recommend. So yeah, I don't know if it's.
Does she have it on her site?
I have it on.
Oh, Holly, you have everything. She does. It is confirmed you do not sleep, do you?
Yes, I do. I still have kids, remember?
I don't
So I have extra time.
Is that a life?
You don't have kids.
I have a life.
No,
I
still have
kids.
kids.
That really
And
does.
you have a
help.
grandbaby, and right? I mean, something.
How many years have you been curriculum director now?
15.
Overall.
Anyways.
That would be very helpful. Thank you. I didn't mean to give us
The thing is though, is now that the standards are new, I need to make sure, they shared it at the regional thing, so it must still be the
Her breakout
tool
was
that's there.
good.
There's a small one, there's a shorter version and a longer version of it. I made my people
She said, don't develop anything and don't go and start doing anything because they're working on one to provide by January. She was hoping. So she did warn us not to start making something.
I use the short one when we screen products, and then I use the longer one on
When you-
two that they.
Yeah, that's kind of how we did it too.
Yeah.
That's what we did.
Because
I
I think
think
they force them to use some thought process other than that's cute. I like that.
We use the really long one for the final.
That's what we.
Yeah.
Because we were gonna do even 3, and then we were like, okay, well, this is taking 2 days to get through one of them, so we just ended up doing it for 2.
Where are these screener tools available? Because I don't think I've ever seen a screener in my life. I know we adopted textbooks, mountain textbooks at least.
I have them, but let me see if
We developed our own for our short one, and we just pulled, we took three rubrics, and we pulled the ones that are common out of all 3 of them, and everything. It's we called it an at a glance.
So it's getting narrowed down.
Yeah. There's like, because some of them are like.
Thank you guys, sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure where, I have them, but if I can find it on the website, I'll put a link to where it is. I'm kind of digging in there right now, I'm just not seeing it. Anything else?
One question about how many curriculum series do you think would be adequate for them to look at? 5? So at 4?
I try to keep it at 4 and I went to 6.
I tried to keep it at 4 and ended up going to like 6 or 7. But
really?
But it'd be like what we
kind of screwed it.
Are you talking about reading or math?
Math.
Math is easier.
Well, that's good.
So ELA is so bad.
ELA was fast, and you like, do you want basal or non-basal, or it would just.
That's next.
So the way I do it is I open it up to everybody because ethically I want anybody, because I don't want somebody, a vendor to come back to me and say, I didn't have an opportunity to even put in your materials. And I've had somebody do, they get a little fussy, a couple of them. So I open it up to anybody and everybody, and you have to have your materials to us by a specific date, and if you don't, you're out. You don't meet the date.
Enough for that. You're probably big enough and you spend enough money.
Yeah, I mean, you'll be, one year for science, somebody sent us literally, it was prior to Pinterest, but it was a notebook with black and white master stuff. I mean, it was like, who's gonna buy that? No, it was a 3-ring notebook that somebody had put together on their own. I'm like, no, but we screened it, we went through all the process, and then I narrow it, we screen and we narrow it down to the 2 or 3 that we want full-blown presentations on, and then we create it. But I opened it up to everybody because I don't want somebody coming back to me going, I didn't get that. I was giving lectures about it. Free stuff, you know.
Going once.
What's this afternoon?
If you, and if nobody wants to stay, I'm not gonna take it personally, but we wanted to put something on the afternoon agenda, so if you need any support or have questions about KeyStep, I will stay and visit with you for a little bit. If nobody does, that's fine too. We were gonna do the poverty talk for breakout session too, but since she was not available, we didn't, so we felt like we needed to put something on there, but it's not gonna hurt my feelings if you have nothing that you need support on or need to talk about, so. That is it.
Thanks, Holly.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Are those for us?
Oh, yes. So don't forget your bag. Did you say that's on?
I have a goodie bag.
Hey, your class is full. Is there a waiting list?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just, it's been a week, this one has been a weird thing with KSDE, and they've been adamant about 70 at about 70, and I spoke with her yesterday. I'm like, already. And Salina's, I checked, and Salina's full.
Last night, actually.
Yeah. So
It was even early this morning that I got the email from her.
I've got 2 rooms booked. I think you're gonna do 2 separate trainings.